Hey, thanks everybody for tuning in to, it's Thursday night, it's Guitar Town Hall. I'm screwing up the intro, just like my Thursday co-host, Mr. David Nesdall. So this is Guitar Town Hall, last call for Dave Nesdall. Sort of, kind of. Let's go with that. I'm gonna welcome, I did upgrade in the looks department for co-hosts for Thursdays. I have the lovely Desiree and Dad joining us. You may recognize the background. And I don't know, Des, beyond let's just tell some lies and have some giggles and invite some friends on.
Yes, let's do that.
Okay. Well, in no particular order of knowing Dave as far as longevity, closeness, although I know they've all hugged Dave at one time or another, I'm pretty sure. So I want to welcome the one and only Rob, EVH 5150, Pete, who, of course says Des is the best dressed, and just, to even out demographics, my lovely sister Amanda. We have someone who shares an experience with Desiree, and that is getting run over by a car by David Nesdall, Larry Mitchell.
Hey. You haven't lived until you've been run over by Dave.
This is true. This is true. A fellow EVH head, and he knows all the best satellite stations to listen to. And he's a good friend, Mr. Anthony Sagazy.
Hey, everybody.
I also want to welcome in from the Commonwealth of Virginia, because it's not a state, it's Commonwealth, Mr. Johnny Highland. And of course, if Dave can't give you a lesson, the first guy he's going to tell you, contact Vince Janella. He knows all the chords and, and some of the rhythms too.
Some of them.
So, yes, welcome one, welcome all, and let's do this. And thankfully, I don't have to add any more people in. I've got the vibrations. We've got 104 people watching already. Isn't that crazy?
Awesome. That's crazy.
It's amazing.
Yes. And because we have 104, not to offend anybody, but thank you everybody that's in the chat. That's a roll call. We'd be here all night doing roll call. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
A lot of love for Dave.
Not that we're going to ignore the chat. We're going to be watching the chat, but let's do this the right way, Des. I'm going to probably hit, a wrong button or two at some point because, consistency. And so I don't know who should we throw it to first, Des, for maybe a little story, perhaps. It's your night. You're the pilot. I'm just driving.
Let's start with Larry. He's like, no. Oh no.
Can he hear?
Larry may have a connection issue.
Did we lose him?
I think he's still there. Well,
He's there. I don't think he can hear us.
Larry, can you hear us?
Rob.
Is he a delay?
Okay.
Is there a delay?
I'm going to throw it up to Rob because he's in the top row here. And Rob was even regaling us a little bit off air. I want to get right to it, Rob, because you're one of the, the last guys the last guy Dave got off his ass and did a road trip to. I'm just saying that right here, right now. Pete's lucky to get a visit from Dave,
Yeah.
and Pete's around the corner. I'm saying, so
Yeah.
Rob, I'm curious about that. You had him up into the northern area where he's like, it's still kind of cool up here, Rob.
Well, it's thank you, Ben, and certainly Desiree and Earl, and thank you for making the trip up and this incredibly difficult time for Desiree. There was it's not very often that I am at a loss for words. It's not very often at all, but there was at first when they said they were going to do the show, I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm really ready to talk because I'm still kind of in shock about the whole thing, and feel like I lost my best friend. But I'm glad I did, and I wouldn't have had it any other way because I think it's good that we get together. So I'm going to stay really positive about my conversation tonight because to me, David Nesdall was always a positive person, and he was a positive friend, and he'll always have that vibe in my heart and in everything I do. And I learned a lot from him, not just guitar stuff, but also a lot about life. I'll just go back real quick, and I know we can all kind of jump in and do different things and have a couple of times to talk, but I'm just going to say that I met David Nesdall back. Well, actually, I met David Nesdall back in January of 2016, and I had been divorced for about 6 months or so, and living in a new place and kind of finding myself and certainly doing the Van Halen guitar thing. And then I got a call from Johnny Bean one night, and Johnny and I had known each other for many years. And he said, "Hey, would you like to be on this show? We do Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays on Van Halen." And I said, "Absolutely." So got on, and I had chatted with Dave. And after the first show, Dave called me the next day, and he said, "Hey, I just want you to," and I remember I was at work. I was in my office. And Dave says, I've known about your guitar collection for years, man. You've been an inspiration to me building stuff and doing these Van Halen guitars." And they said, "Dave, you too." It's because it was the same thing with Dave. And it was just like an immediate friendship. We were finishing each other's sentences. And I think it wasn't even like 3 weeks later, I made my first trip out to Glen Cove, New York, Long Island, 3.5-hour drive out to see Dave. And Anthony, I don't think that was that time that I met you. I think it was a different time. Maybe it was the second time I came out when we went and saw Paul Unkert and all that.
Yeah, when you came down by me. Yeah. Second time.
But I remember the first time I went out to see Dave, and I walked in to the room that Desiree and her lovely dad, are sitting there. And I walked in, I'm like, "Yep, this looks like my place." It's just was great. And we just had a great time. I spent the whole weekend with him and continued to do the shows. And it would take forever to go over all the times that I got a chance to not only visit with Dave, but and enjoy his company and meet pretty much a lot of the folks that, are on the chat and in this, in the video, from Pete to Larry to Anthony, and, some of you folks I haven't met. But what I'll say is Dave quickly became, a best friend, and he quickly became someone that I would talk to since the time I met him. Probably, we wouldn't go a week without talking on the phone or texting. Sometimes there'd be a couple of weeks or a few weeks we got real busy, we may not talk, but we were always talking on a weekly basis and sending messages and seeing how you're doing. And Dave was instrumental not only in the guitar world to me, but he was instrumental in helping me and teaching me a lot about life, and that, when you go through something really difficult in life, there's always a second chance. There's always something next. And that was something that I'll probably spend the rest of my life remembering about him. He was just a special, special guy. And I would say I've probably been out to see Dave and Desiree, because she came along a couple of years after I, started to go know Dave and get to hang out with him. I've probably been out to Dave's place, I'd say probably 30 times, because I love the drive out there. I love just spending the weekend with him. And, due to Dave's condition and things like that, just different hardships and things like that, it was very difficult for him to make the trip out to see me. And a few months ago, Desiree and Dave called and they said, we're coming out to see you. And I was like, great. And they did. And they were out here about 3.5 weeks ago. And they came out on a Friday evening and they left on a Sunday morning or afternoon, I should say. It was Easter they left. And it was just great. And Dave called me probably 3 or 4 times since they left. And he said, something, Rob? He said, that was a great trip. It was awesome to come out and see you. And that probably was, I guess I'll just say, if you have to leave someone and you have to lose a special person in your life, the last time you get to spend time with them is, hopefully it's a special time. And I can honestly say that I was truly blessed that Dave and Desiree were able to come out and spend the weekend with me, because that was an amazing way to have a last meeting. And I don't look at it like Dave is gone. I look at it like he's always with me. I was just talking to him today, driving home from work, like, hey, we're doing a show about you tonight, bud. I know you know that already, and it's difficult, but at the same time, Dave Nesdall is someone who will live in my heart for the rest of my life. And I'm very blessed and happy that he was part of my life, because he was a big one. And that's just
well said, my friend.
Yeah.
It's tough, man.
How many times, how you doing? Yeah, don't worry about me. How you doing?
Yeah.
That's Dave, right? That's
very
Dave.
giving. Very giving.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to say most of you have been able to obviously hang with Dave in person for extended periods of time. But Johnny, I'm not sure if you have ever got to meet Dave in person, but I know, like me, virtually, he's not a hard guy to get along with. You know what I mean? Like,
no, man, he was a one-of-a-kind guy, man. Very special indeed, man. I know from the first show I did with him, one of my favorite things to do is after a show like that, especially when you have a good time, which I actually asked Dave, I said, man, what's one of your favorite pedals you don't have, man, that you're wanting real bad? And, Dave was such a gearhead, man. And, he loved the Eddie Van Halen thing and all that. But where I was a Kiesel boy, man, and he knew I was so pumped to be a part of the Kiesel family, oh, man, I got to get one of those JH6s, and I got to get me some Kiesels, man. And I said, yeah, Dave, you do, brother. But I sent him a pedal. And I remember the first phone call he made back to me was one I'll never forget. He was just, man, I can't believe you sent me this. And I said, brother, you have already become a brother. And I said, I don't know how to explain why or how that happened. But I said, you are, you're welcome to call me at any time. You're welcome to reach out. And he's like, dude, I don't want to bother you, man. I said, dude, don't worry about that, man, And so we would actually, have 2 or 3 hour conversations that literally felt like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And it was very easy to stay on the phone with Dave. And I agree with what y'all are saying. He was such a special person in that it wasn't just about guitars and gear, even though that was one of his major loves, but he could always direct you in life. He could always help you if you were feeling negative about something or you were just having a bad day. And I don't know why, but Dave seemed to always call me on the days I needed him like that, Somehow he just knew.
Yep.
And
I see a lot of nods here on the panel. Yep.
Yeah, he didn't and nothing was ever it was like you guys said, he just called up and, brother, how are you today? And it was like, yeah, the guitars and pedals and amps and stuff to talk about was great, but he always was concerned about the person.
Mm-hmm.
And I just loved that about him. I loved his, and of course I found we had a mutual friend in Dion Edge in Nashville. Dion was a guitar tech for me for a long time, and I guess he and Dave went back years and years. But I think I'm probably the newest guy that got to know Dave and the whole group here. But I will say he touched my life and will be truly missed by me. I really am heartbroken by this. I really am. But here again, Dave was such a positive guy that I think we all tonight want to keep this a positive thing. And I know he's up there giggling at all of us right now. And I remember even when he was going through some hardships with, health stuff, he'd call me, and, I would always, I don't know why, but I would always tell Dave jokes. And he had a pretty infectious laugh.
Yes.
So I really enjoyed hearing him laugh. So I always found some kind of joke to tell him that he would get a big kick out of. And then even 20 minutes into the conversation, he'd start to laugh again. And I'd say, Dave, what's so funny? He's like, I'm just thinking about that joke, man. And but I really, really, truly love Dave as a person. And like I said, I really feel like I am truly blessed to have gained the friendship I did with him. And I will certainly never forget it. And will always be forever grateful to him. And I know I'll see him again one day. Yeah. So I'm very, very blessed.
That's true. I'm just going to say, I see Tom in the chat here, good buddy Tom. He co-hosts my Monday show. And Tom got really sick a while back himself, and he was in hospital for an extended period of time. And he says, Dave made a point to call me and ask how I was.
Yeah.
That's why I'm going to throw a lot of stuff off to other people tonight because, this is hard to read these comments out loud. I can read them, but it's like actually saying them out loud. It's something else altogether.
The chat's moving like a stock ticker right now.
Yeah, it is. It is. We got 134 people watching, Des. 134. Half of us on the panel, we pray for that at a gig. I'm just saying, 134 is not a bad little club gig these days. So
well put, Johnny. Very well put.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking, I was giggling the first part of what you're saying there, Johnny, when you're having that first comment. You can call me because you and I had that same conversation. That's why there's a photo of Johnny Highland hanging up in the studio.
Well, brother, I appreciate that, and I do want to share with any of y'all. I think Des, you still probably have my number, don't you, gal? I would be more than happy to have Dave chats with any of you at any time and pass that same kind of brotherhood on, because I think Dave would want that from all of us. And Des, that goes for you too, girl. If you need anything, please reach out.
Thank you. I'll get your number off of David's phone and I'll reach out to you.
Oh yeah, you get Dave's phone. Yes, that's like I can do that. Yeah. That was a hard text to text Johnny on Monday morning. So. Yeah, I didn't let a lot of people know before it was public, but Johnny was one of the people, and I was like, all right. And I think I talked to Johnny and Pete and Ty, and so
it went so fast. It by 8:00, my phone, because I had taken David's phone with me, so at 8:00 in the morning, I'm like, oh my gosh, wow. So his phone was going off. My phone was going off. His messenger was going off. My messenger was going off. Text messages. And I'm like, what the? Sorry. I was like,
that's okay. You can swear on my channel. And
my phone never rings. And I'm like, how does everybody already know this? I'm like, it was very touching. But at one point, I'm like, okay. So I started responding, and I'm like, I can't. And then everybody's like, oh my God. I'm like, I get it. Trust me, I get it. I'm like, I just, it was just so hard. And I felt bad because I wanted to let everybody know that I appreciate the comments, but I just couldn't keep up. And I was like, I'm like, okay, I love you all. Eventually I will get back to you. Just, I don't know what to say.
I'm not sure how that happened, Chris, because I thought I demonetized tonight's show, but holy crap on a cracker.
Thank you.
My first Dave quote of the night, Des. My God.
Awesome.
Chris Locke, thank you. I'm going to figure out a way to get that to the Kidney Foundation, brother. I really appreciate that. But definitely, I think Terry's been throwing a link in the chat to the Kidney Foundation for any donations, because I don't want Google taking a cut, first of all. Like, this is for Dave, and any donation to the Kidney Foundation in Dave's name would be there. Thanks you, Terry. That'd be awesome. And welcome, Dennis, the guy who was kicked out of David's home for Desiree.
What's up, Dennis? How you doing?
Hey guys, how you doing?
We weren't to talk about that publicly. That was a secret.
I just remember it weighed on. He's like, Desiree has the curves, but Dennis has the gear, and it was and we know Dave loved his guitars, but he loved Des more.
That is well put, Ben. Very well put. Yes.
It was time. It was the right time. Yeah, for sure. Hi guys.
Hi.
Good to see y'all.
Great to have you here.
Hey, Dennis.
Yes, Dennis, you've been in Texas, haven't you? I heard that, y'all.
I was in San Antonio for the first half of the week. Yeah. Your home state, Des. Your home
Yes.
state.
Yeah, that's where Larry is right now. And apropos, right? That's where he's in New York. And
Yeah, I'm in East Texas right now. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
and it's storming outside, so I think the internet keeps dropping here for a minute.
Mhm.
Fair enough. I get it. It's all good. Consider I'm on DSL internet, so I'm still living in the 90s here. So I'm just happy.
DSL. Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, what is that?
Yeah.
Show us your BlackBerry, man.
Is that an 8-track behind you?
Hey,
Like
guys
all
are cool, man.
I think it's a reel to reel, actually.
True. Pete, how did you meet Dave Nesdall?
It's a great story. So we met in person. We were on a bill together. We played a show. It was like an all-day festival in a town, Oyster Bay. It's one town over from Glen Cove. I grew up coincidentally 2 miles away from him in Glen Head, but I never knew who Dave was. I mean, so my drummer, who lives in Glen Cove, he's like, Pete, this was 10, 11 years ago. He's like, listen, there's this dude in Glen Cove that's just like, it looks like he robbed Eddie Van Halen's house. And they're like, what do you mean? He's like, supposedly this guy has every Van Halen guitar known to man. He's like, he's someone you probably want to try to find. And, he told me his name. But, that back then I didn't know about Johnny Bean or any of the Van Halen shows. And,
Sure.
there weren't that many groups 10 years ago on Facebook, right? So we show up at the show and my drummer's like, yeah, Pete, this is Dave. And we met and it was pretty funny. I always busted his chops to this day. I'm like, hi, yeah, Dave, remember that show where you guys opened up for me? Like, we didn't open up for you. We had the best slot of the day. I'm like, yeah, you opened up for me, pal, stop. But we hit it off. And there was a cool nostalgic thing because anytime I went and hung out with him, it was like going back to my old stomping grounds. I mean, I left Glen Head right after junior high, and the only time I would ever go back to that neighborhood is to go to Dave's house. So, whatever. I met Dave, a while ago, and definitely during the days when Dennis was living with him. So, a lot of times I would go there. Dennis is, you'd watch Dennis playing guitar, and I'm like, holy shit, what the hell are you working on now? Who's that you're playing? Like, it's this piece. I gotta, like, oh, Jesus. It was great. It was, listen, to hang around me, you have to have thick skin. I'm going to test you quick. I'm a quintessential ball buster, and if you can't handle it,
No, not you.
you're not my people. I gotta test it a little bit. And I think the one thing, again, talking about Dave's spirit and always putting on a great face and always being positive, with everything he was going through over time, he never wanted to be that guy. He didn't want anyone feeling bad for him. Like that it just wasn't him. And I'll never forget, I was hanging out with him, and again, with one of his ailments, if you ever hung out with Dave, he had these shoes that were just, were very odd. It was like cinder blocks with laces, right? So he was having a problem walking around, and I'm watching him, and I turn to him, I go, "Dave, it looks like you're struggling walking." And I'm like, "What's with the fucking shoes?" He goes, "Dad, they're fitted for my feet." I'm like, "Well, is your doctor blind? You got 2 left feet on. Like, go talk to your doctor. Like, you can walk better than that. Like, what are those things?" And he would always be like, "You're a sick son of a bitch." I'm like, I'm just calling it like I see it, you know. And listen, I would bust his chops, and he loved it. You know.
Thank you, Stephen. We'll get that forwarded to the Kidney Donation. Thank you.
Yeah, that's just another sweet one. Wow.
Yeah. Definitely use the link that Terry's throwing in the chat. Terry, spam the chat because Google's going to take a cut of that, and I don't like them taking cuts of Dave.
No, you don't want that.
Yeah.
But
thank you.
You know,
we appreciate it.
We've had it.
Welcome, Ty.
Hey,
Ty.
Hey, Ben.
Southern Hemisphere of America.
Sure. Hey, Ben. Nope. Hey, Desiree. How are you?
How you doing, Ty?
Okay.
Hey, Ty.
Yeah, we love you. Hey, gentlemen. Oh, it's good. It's so good to see you all. I wish it were under better circumstances because it really is so good to see you all.
Same.
And it's very personally very comforting for me to see you all. So yeah,
that's true. Yeah, we're all gonna get through this together one way or another, I think.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Dennis,
Dave would be thrilled that we were all here together. I mean,
yes.
He'd be thrilled.
We know each other because of him. It's the 7 degrees of Nesdale, right? It's just not knowing Dave. I don't know Ty. Obviously, I don't know Desiree, right? Ben, Larry. I can rattle it all off. Dennis, Vince. I'm sorry. I don't think we've ever hung out. Johnny, I've definitely heard of you. Anthony tried to make me a fig tree, so we go way back. He handed me a branch like real guineas. He's like, "Here, take this branch and soak it in the towel. And it'll grow."
I think it was one of Dave's greatest talents. You know, he was such a good connector. You know, he brought people together, and he enjoyed that. And so many of us got to witness that on YouTube every week. But Dave was such a people person and such a caring individual. He enjoyed bringing people together. I think of him as a great connector.
Yeah, definitely.
That's very
true. I think he even want to know how y'all got me on here, because he would always be like, "Dave, do you want to sit with me and do the show?" I'm like, "I don't want to be on YouTube ever, never again." I'm like, at the beginning, I didn't mind sitting with you, but never again. You'll never catch me on here again. And he's like, "Okay, one day." I'm like, "No."
I remember when I met Pete, Dave said to me one night, he goes, "You got to meet this guy, Pete. We're having this guy on our show." It's when Dave and I and Johnny were doing the show years back. He's going to have this guy, Pete, on. And you got to meet him. He's a big Van Halen guy. And we got off the show, and I'm like, "That guy, Pete's pretty cool." I said, "Geez." I said, "What's he do for work?" He goes, "He breaks legs."
Yes. Tell me too.
He goes, "He breaks people's legs for a living." I'm like, "Really?" That's been a running joke. So Dave always had that sense of humor about, like you said, introducing people. That's how I met him.
Early on, he actually goes, he actually said this. He goes, "Can I ask you a question?" He's like, "Are you?" I'm like, "Are you serious?" He's like, "Yeah, like I understand you're a great guitar player, but there's something about you. I feel like." I'm like, "Nah, man." I'm like, I go, "Thanks." I'm like,
I break fingers, not legs.
Yeah. I definitely been around that a little bit, but no, I'm not that. Come on, really? It made me laugh, man. Listen, it's my voice. I've heard it for a long time.
Those guys don't. You'd never really know. Those guys, you never really know.
No.
The loud mouths are the ones that aren't. The ones that really are.
Yeah, they don't talk about it ever.
No.
Very quiet.
Good point.
I'm gonna miss him. I really am. He something that always, anytime I had a problem or some kind of anomaly with one of my guitars, and he would always figure out it like you'd just watch him, and he would just do a little tweak here or a little twist there, and it just fixed it. It just changed it. It was wild. And the one thing he would always say, at least with me, like, how did you? It's like, Pete, it's just a guitar. It's just, I'm not working on nuclear warheads. It's just a guitar. It's not,
Nuclear warhead.
it's this is, it's, don't be scared. Because I would never want to touch my truss rod. Like I felt like if I would turn it, the neck would just snap. And he would just go, he's like, no, they would hand it to you. I'm like, oh wow. Yeah, I'm like, it was
at times you want to call him the guitar chiropractor.
Yeah, he just snap you like, wow, that feels great.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you, Pete. I'm right
Thank
there
you
with
very
you,
much,
Pete. Many times I brought Dave my guitars, and because I don't work on my guitars, I can break the guitar real quick. And he'd be doing stuff, and I was like, I can't look. And he'd hand it back to me, and it felt amazing. He definitely.
I just want to say that it's just a guitar. It's just a guitar. That's all this is. But he was good at it.
100% right. He was just the master. He had that master touch, and I learned so much about working on guitars from David Nesdall. I'd bring guitars down to to his place, and we'd hang out, whatever. I mean, just what, Desiree, 3 weeks ago, we're sitting on my couch right back here, and I'm changing the bar for him, and he's like, no, put a little shim in here, do this, boom, it looks like magic. He just knew we had that touch, and that. Not only was David an amazing guitar player in his day, he just had that touch. It was amazing. Yeah.
100% right. It's dawning on me now. I mean, he set up all my guitars, and there were many times I would just load the car up with everything I had. Day, we'll set up all your guitars, and long overdue for that now. Over the past couple of months, but wow, man, it's hard to believe that those are the final setups I'll have from him. He was fearless with the guitars, and I think what was it, Ty before was saying he was fearless with people. He was so friendly. I remember the first time he called Paul Hunker. He just picked up the phone and called him. I said, "You can do that?" He's like, "Yeah, I talked to him for an hour. Come on, well, let's go singing." And that's how we spent time with the guy.
Yeah.
Wow. And I remember I met Dave when he used to work on 48th Street. So this is going back 20-something years. I used to work in an office building across from 48th Street. So he was in Manny's, and I would go there on my lunch hour every day, like a drug addict going to the crack den. It was terrible. I'd get paid, and I walk across the street. Dave, here, just disperse this around the store and give me something.
Can I just sign the back of the check over to you, Dave?
Yeah. And he taught me, obviously we bonded over Van Halen, right? I mean, he was the first person that I ever met that was just as crazy as I was about the band and Eddie. But he taught me so much more about guitars. He turned me on to Telecasters, and he helped me know what to look for when I was his magic touch was not just about setups. He knew how to find the most amazing guitars. Like, you want an old Les Paul? I used to joke with him all the time. Like, you should just make a career out of curating guitar collections for millionaires. He knew where to find the best
personal shopper. Shopper.
Yeah.
He rubbed his telly in my face several times.
Yeah.
One thing I never forgave him for, though, I never forgave him for giving up that 62 Strat. It was the most amazing Strat I had ever played in my life. Yeah. And everybody knows he had a roster, a stable. He would just trade in and out, and guitars he never got personally attached to him too much. Unlike me, where I can't be partnered with my guitars. They all have a special story and an emotional connection. He would just. It was like a baseball team. He would trade players. They'd come and go. But he had this 162 Strat, which the neck felt like a stick of warm butter. It was incredible. It was incredible. And the tone was perfect. And, of course, he set it up. It was amazing. I just never played anything like it. I'm like, and then one day he told me, yeah, I traded it. And God knows what he traded it for. I never forget.
I can tell you, Anthony. One of our last shows we did together, Andy Allendort was razzing him for getting rid of that guitar still to this day. So, oh yeah,
he deserved it from anyone who would tell it to him.
Apparently, and that's what I've gathered about that. That was apparently was a really good 62 Strat.
It was a really good 62 Strat. I remember it. I remember doing a gig with him where he sat in with my band and he had it, and I was like, "Oh boy, that sounds good." And he came to a gig. We were at a bar and just a bar gig, and he showed up with 2 Vibrolux reverbs. He played in stereo, and I like it loud. But I was like, Jesus, that's a jet engine. I mean, amen. But it's like, oh, we're only at a bar. You can fit maybe 150 people in here, But it was fun. It was fun. But that Stratocaster, that was a great guitar. That was a special one. But I remember, I think we probably all razzed him at one point or another. And he even razzed himself. He's like, yeah, shouldn't have gotten rid of that one, I guess. But hey, we can all say that.
Exactly. I think there's always a regret of something you should have never
right.
Got rid of it.
I'm curious, Dennis, how did you meet Dave?
I was thinking about that. I've known Dave for at least 25 years, 26 years. I met him. It was sort of organically. I remember talking to him first at a music store out here on Long Island called the Music Emporium, New York Music Emporium. Used to be Focus 2 Guitar Centers. And I was playing a guitar, just messing around. And he and I started chatting, like, you like what I was playing or whatever it was. And then he started seeing my band because he was friends with a few other guys. And they would see my band play at this place called the Wantagh Inn, I remember, right by the train station in Wantagh. And that's how I got to know Dave. He would come down and we would just start talking, as we all do. They'd start talking about gear and guitars and bands and music. And he would ask me questions and I would ask him questions. So I want to say by the mid 90s, I can't pinpoint an exact date, but I know that it was, Music Emporium featured heavily. I remember when he worked at Manny's, but I feel like I got to know him at the tail end of that. But yeah, and it was organic. I mean, we saw one another every now and again, and then eventually it was like, well, we exchanged phone numbers, and then it's like pretty soon we're talking, on a daily or every 2 days we would just talk to one another. And it got to the point where, I was just thinking about this today because, I just bought a pedal. When I flew in, when I got home last night, I was like, well, I'm going to go out to my buddy Jax, the guy who builds the amps that I play. And because he's a J-Rocket dealer. So I ordered that new El Hombre pedal, like I need another overdrive pedal, especially after I just told Dave, I was like, I'm done with overdrive pedals. I'm good. Nope. Then I see a video for the El Hombre. I'm like, well, I have to have that. Try that. So, and I thought I was so tired last night. I didn't plug it in until this morning. And I thought, I got to call Camp. Like Dave was my guy that I called if I wanted to, talk about some new piece of gear and I'm sure it was the same for you guys too. I would call him. We spoke nearly every day. I made sure I called him every day, particularly in the past year, but even before that, I would, we spoke, multiple times a week. It was just, give me a little, like 2 minutes. What's going on, dude? I can't talk right now, or I'll talk to you later. He was like a brother to me. So, it's one of the many things I'll miss about him, but he was, as you guys know him, to his last day. He was that way when I first met him. The same kind of warm personality. He got me into Les Pauls, which I had largely ignored or, like whatever, stuffy things, or that's what I thought initially. And he had a Les Paul. It was like the late 90s or maybe like 2000. And I picked it up and he'd let you borrow anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
So like, yeah, then take it for a spin, whatever, like, oh, okay. So he got me into Les Pauls. He and I, oh my God, how many guitars have gone through our hands? And we would regularly get together, and I can remember it was after I did Moving Out. I was living in the city at the time, and I had like 6 Stratocasters. And I remember he and I would do this. We would get together, but even if we couldn't, like I laid out like 5 Strats I had on the bed, like a little rainbow. You know, you take a picture of them and send it to him and be like, "Yeah, that's cool." Like that was like I was 15. You know. And we got together one day. We lined up all of our Telecasters. Like at the time, I think I had a Blue Ice Metallic. We laid them. We lined them all up on his couch. This white couch that he had at the time. And we just, what do? We sit back and we go, cool.
Yeah.
That's it.
Dennis, you remember that time that I was down visiting with Dave, and you were still living at the place there, and I brought that Steinberger Trans-Trem down?
Yes.
And Dave is like, Dennis, you got to check this guitar out. Rob, break that thing out. So I broke it out because I was at the time I was the only one in our group that had one, and I broke it out. And Dennis is like, because you knew what it was.
Yeah.
But I still have the video of Dave and I sitting there watching Dennis rip this freaking Steinberger Trans-Trem. He was like alien to him. And Dennis is as amazing guitarist as he is. I still have the video of you just ripping that thing for like 5 minutes. And Dave and I are just sitting there smiling. And you're looking at Dave, and you look at Dave, and you're like, what the hell is this thing? This thing is so weird with this bridge. It's like,
Yeah.
So cool. Remember that day?
I do remember that day. And I would love to have that video.
I'll send it to you, bud. I still have it. I'll send it to you.
I'd love to do that. I mean, that's the way Dave was, how he and I were together. And even when we lived together, I lived there for a couple of, like 3 years, I think. We were, or nearly something like that. Every day it was just guitar, and he would come to gigs, and he'd bring stuff, I'd bring stuff. I mean, when he was gigging a lot, and here's the other thing. I mean, I think you guys know this, or some of you guys know this. He was a really, really good singer.
Yeah.
Really good singer, an incredible sense of pitch. And one of the last times I heard him singing was in his kitchen. And I think I was living there. It might have been, no, it was before. And he was, I remember I walked into the place, and he was in the kitchen, and he was singing Running on Faith, Eric Clapton. He was playing an acoustic and singing this tune, and it was just, he was by himself, and it was so pure. It was so good. And I was like, dude, you got to be singing more. And he was like, come on, man, you got to sing. Like, that was awesome. It was, so he had great ears. He had a great knack, as you guys all know. We all said for picking out good guitars. And God, how many things crossed our. He bought, like, I'd buy a guitar. He'd buy it off of me when I was done with it. I was like, hey, it's still in the family.
Yeah. You guys were still doing that. I think one of your guitars is at Dave's house. I reach out because I know you guys were doing it, and I always thought that was awesome because I've got one friend I've done that with, and it's hard to find a friend that you get to do that with. And he was great. That Les Paul, that orange lemon fade Les Paul, yeah, that was mine. And that Dave, I just saw Dave. I mean, was it Friday or? I mean, it wasn't. It was just late last week, and we were joking around. I think it might have been Thursday, but we were joking around. Larry Fitzgerald was there, and Larry left, and Dave and I were chatting for a bit afterwards. And I told him, I said, Dave, it's still one of the funniest things I've seen is when you drop that Les Paul in the video. You're showing everybody Les Paul because he sent me the video, and it's slowed down, right, to make, and it's just. And I said, Dave, you were like, look at this. And he foot dropped because it has a broken headstock. Oh. And nothing was wrong with it. It was fine. There was not a scratch on it. He didn't miss a beat, too. As he's saying, now this sounds like a real Les Paul, and it's got a broken headstock. And I'm live with him.
The best part was Ben's face. Ben's face was like on that video, which is crazy.
Yeah. Oh my God!
Dave goes, oops.
He called me. He's like, Dan, and he told me about it, and then he sent me the video, and he was laughing. And when I was recounting the story to him just last Thursday, he was smiling. He's like, because he made it. He just made it out because that could have gone a totally different way. We all know how Gibson.
he's like, Desiree, he's texting me. He's like, oh my God, come check out the guitar, please. He's like, bring me the glue. And I'm like, because I heard the noise and I was like, what happened to you? And so he's like, bring the glue. And I'm like, I'm not bringing you the glue for that. He goes, bring the glue. So I'm sneaking the glue on camera to him. He's like, oh, it's fine. That's fine.
right. Yeah, because one of the mirror top decals popped out of the knob.
Yeah.
That was literally the damage.
Right. And that actually was probably the one that popped out when I first owned the guitar. When I first bought it, like that just fell right out. And I think I thought I glued it back on, whatever. It's, you know.
It's like, uh-oh.
But yeah, I mean, I can't, if I think about that right now, I laugh because it was so perfectly, God, it was great. So he had a big grin on his face and that made me smile all the more, you know. And I spoke to him on Sunday. We did, didn't we, Desiree? Didn't I talk to him? Because I talked to him just about every day, you know, so.
I think you did. It was either Saturday or Sunday, but yeah, you just had talked to him. I think you did talk to him on Sunday.
Yeah. And I think he said like he was feeling tired or whatever. So but yeah, there's so many. Look, it's for him that I introduced him. He and my buddy Greg Smith. We introduced him to what we called the sandwich. Actually, Greg called it the sandwich, and it was this like you got it at Umberto's over in New Hyde Park, and it was like broccoli rabe and chicken, like grilled chicken or like breaded chicken cutlet on a giant hero, and with like the oil and the butter, the bread is wet. It's crispy on the outside. It was, man, we talked about the sandwich on a regular basis.
Hey, Des, I have a question. Who did the cooking in the house, you or Dave?
David.
Dave would do the cooking. I mean,
I know.
It seemed like every time I was on the phone with him, he'd be like, hey, Johnny boy, I love you, man. And we had really, man, we could talk for days, but man, I'm trying to get like this pasta together with some mushroom sauce. And I'm going, Dave, I just ate a sandwich 2 weeks ago, dude. Quit it. I'm like, dude, every time I talk to you, you make me salivate like an old dog, man.
Oh, yeah.
Going on both sides of my mouth, man.
Oh, yeah.
So like he hasn't, I'll say a little bit. So he hasn't really been feeling this. So Friday, he surprised me. He's like, hey, babe, I can't wait for you to get home. I'm like, okay. I'm like, he always asks me, what do you want for dinner? And as most of you know, David was the most pickiest eater ever. It couldn't have cheese. It couldn't have onions. And if you even saw a speck of cheese, you would hear this, I don't want to eat cheese. No cheese. No cheese. Or if he saw me eating cheese, he'd be like, oh, you have cheese on you. Don't touch me. Don't touch me. And so I would always tell him, okay, you pick it. And so I was on the phone with him. He's like, hey, can you go by and get some bread? I'm like, why you want bread? He's like, I'm making you, help me out then, olive vodka.
Olive vodka, penny olive vodka?
Yes.
Okay.
And he was making it homemade and everything. And I'm like, oh my God, it was like the best ever. So when I got home, I'm like, oh, wow, you're feeling better, huh? He's like, yeah, I just want to make you a good meal. And now I'm like, now what am I going to eat? He did all the cooking. He was an amazing cook. That's why I'm, chunky monkey over here. But he was so amazing. And now I'm like, well, now what am I going to do? I'm going to starve to death now because he's not here to feed me.
Desiree, you remember when you guys got there on the Friday night a few weeks back, and I'm like, let's just get pizza. So I'm gonna go out and get pizza, and I'm ordering it, and I'm like, wait a minute, he wants pizza with no cheese on it. I'm like, what?
Oh man.
Yeah.
So it wasn't. It was like he wanted to make sure it didn't have onions or a specific kind of cheese. Or
Dave
no onions in the sauce. No onions in the sauce.
Dave introduced me to the there used to be a good pizza place, Des, you know it.
Yes.
It's not there. It's not there anymore, right? I mean,
Sal's.
Sal's, yeah.
And he introduced me to at Sal's. You could get a calzone, but without the ricotta, you get the meat calzone. I was like, really? They do that? Yeah. Okay. So it was just, oh my God, it was fantastic.
That place was amazing, Dennis. And the dude looked like Sylvester Stallone that worked there. An older version of Rocky.
Yeah, and he had a mug on, like he'd look at you sideways a little bit, like why are you in here? Well,
yes.
Want a pizza?
One reason. It's not to look at you.
Well, I'd like to get Larry Mitchell involved in this conversation because I'm seeing him laughing, and I know his connection's good at the moment. Larry, can you tell us a Dave story
Oh gosh.
Maybe, I don't know. That doesn't involve you getting run over by a vehicle, perhaps. Or how about,
There are many
how
stories
about you
that
guys did a lot of gigs together?
Well, Dave was my guitar tech in the '90s for a long time, and not only when I was gigging, but he came to my house every day. I didn't drive. I don't know if you guys know this. I didn't start driving until 1999. So Dave would drive to my house and we would hang out. Um, I called Dave when I got the Tracy Chapman tour, and I said, Dave, I have a short amount of time to learn 30 songs because Dave had great ears. So he came over and learned 30 songs and taught them to me. 30 Tracy Chapman songs and taught them to me that, like pretty much in a day, and it reinforced it. Dave, Des, you've seen me going, hey Dave, how do you play this?
Yep.
But one of my favorite, and I was just talking with his mom about this the other day. My favorite and horrible memory was we both ate way worse in the '90s, and I love chocolate and sweets and stuff like that. And Dave would just eat 2 to 3 times whatever I would eat. A couple of Snickers bars, M&Ms, Twinkies, whatever. And then we'd go to like a McDonald's back in those days, and Dave would order all this, like the giant of everything. And then one day we're at his house, and his mom goes, "Hey Larry, I keep finding all these like candy wrappers and McDonald's wrappers in Dave's car, and he says they're yours." And because I know they she was concerned about my health. She goes, "I know there can't be Dave's because he's diabetic." And I was like,
Oh my
"What? He's diabetic?" I was like, I knew him for a year. I was like, "Dave, you're diabetic?" And he goes, "Oh yeah." And
Oh yeah.
and it was
I
like,
forgot about that.
from that point on, I was like kind of an enforcer, and he would hide food. He was good at hiding stuff too. Sometimes
Yes.
he would hide food from me.
Oh my God.
And I'd get something, and he was like, "Oh, I'm not going to eat. I'm not going to." And it's like, wait, I just saw you eat a cheeseburger. Where did that come from? And then he would drive me. We would stuff. He had this Nissan Sentra car, which I think he flipped the first one. I think he had 2 of them. He flipped one before.
That's
But
impressive.
we would pile in. Yes, and he just walked away from it, But we would pile 6 guitars, a 16 space shop mount rack, another small one with power amps, and 2 412 cabinets, and we would just load it down, and we would drive all over. He drove me to New Hampshire to do a gig, and I remember it because I was, for the first time ever, playing with a band that I didn't know, and it was going to be a big show at a record company thing, opening for Living Color. And we got to it was in a snowstorm too. He drove me in a snowstorm. We got to Brattleboro, Vermont, and the instructions was, this is way before cell phones that we could have. And the instruction was, stop at this Chinese restaurant where where bands play. It's like a nightclub at night. And there's a payphone that works there because you need to find a payphone that worked. And so he pulls up. He goes, "All right, you make the phone call, and I'll be right here." And I go call, and the guy gives me the directions, and he says, "I'll meet you at the house, but just go in anyway because the door's not locked." And actually, there was no door on the mudroom door. So I get back in the car, and Dave seriously just looked at me and goes, "So what are you going to do if these guys suck?" It's like, we've been driving for 8 hours. You could have mentioned that before we left New York.
Right.
Unfortunately, it turned out to be great. It turned out to be a great experience. But when we got to the drummer's house, we went in because there was no door. We kind of pushed a little swing door into the kitchen, praying that this is the right house. And so there was, yes. Because, rolling up on someone's house, just walking in is a little different. And so the instructions were there was 2 places to sleep. Somebody could sleep on the couch in the living room, someone could sleep in the guest room upstairs. So we decided to both go upstairs and see what the guest room is like. And the drummer, Jeff, forgot to tell us that his roommate used that room for his model collection. And Dave was into models too. Dave was into model cars, model planes. But his roommate was into World War II memorabilia. And so we opened the door, and the only thing we saw was there you go.
Yep.
All we saw was Nazi warplanes and tanks.
Jeez.
And it was like, I don't know if we're in the right house at all. Dave goes, yeah, I don't really want to sleep in this room. I said, I don't want to sleep in this room either. So we slept on the couch, like, just kind of, all across the couch. And the next time we went up there, the same thing. We went up, and the gig was great, but we went up and called, and he goes, all right, I'll meet you at the house. And I said, should we just walk in like last time? He goes, no, we got a reinforced door, and it's locked. And I go, what happened? You get robbed? He goes, no, I'll tell you when you get there. So when we get there, he meets us, lets us in, and they got like this seriously reinforced door to the mudroom, and then another one to the kitchen. And I said, what happened? He goes, well, we heard a bunch of like pots and pans banging around and cabinets and things being ripped off the wall. And him and his roommate came down, and there was a bear in their kitchen.
There, yeah.
This was right next to where Dave and I had stayed.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
We were very happy that the bear chose later on to come into the kitchen.
Oh,
I said, the bear was just pulling cabinets off the wall, and
as bears do.
As bears do.
Wow.
As bears do.
Right.
I can just
And
see
then,
with that perfect Nesdale
what?
cadence too. What if these guys suck?
Yes. Because he's just like, what are you going to do if these guys suck? And I'm like, and I lost it. So I had 45 minutes of like going, oh no, this is going to be the worst thing I've ever done. But it turned out to be the thing that convinced me that I could travel the world and play with players that I've talked, just sent songs to. And without that experience, and without Dave driving me up there, I don't know if I would still be doing things, if I would be doing things the way I do it now.
That's a great story.
But yeah, he was so knowledgeable about guitar stuff. He taught me many things. I mean, I understood. I mean, I built Bradshaw rigs back in the day for people. But he taught me a lot about just guitar stuff and different kinds of tones. I had a very specific knowledge set, and Dave's knowledge set was huge about the history of guitars and history of vintage guitars, modern guitars. I would call Dave, or text Dave, hey Dave, you know what year this is? And he could look at the picture and go, yeah. He'd tell me what it is. And when I decided I wanted to get a 58 reissue, I called Dave up, and we went around the stores. We tried 25 of those guitars, and and I always had to get Dave's approval. It's like, this feels good, and he would go, yeah, I don't know if this is going to be the same in a few months. And then I would play one and go, I like this. He goes, yeah, I like that one too. And he'd play it. And he goes, yeah, this is the one. And he was right on, absolutely right on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great story.
I'm gonna ask Larry for one more story because as much as I love Dave, I'm just thinking when he was teching for you, Larry, and your guitar broke, and maybe your tech didn't bring all the tools required.
Wait, there's a lot of broken guitar tech stories.
Well, I just seem to recall, like, it reminded me when you were saying, like, what if these guys suck? It was one of those lines, I believe something had broke and he didn't have a soldering iron, perhaps.
Dave?
Yeah. And you looked at him and you said, isn't that something a tech should have? And he's like, yeah, you'd think so.
Yeah, but there's a lot of tech stories I just can't even tell. But Dave was great. Dave was a tech that he could fix anything with anything. But yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Where before I stopped touching my guitars, I tried to fix guitars, and I could break guitars with a soldering iron like that. I could break guitars instantly. And I broke 3 guitars in a matter of about an hour. So this is probably a guitar that I had worked on, and Dave had no soldering iron, no extra tools, and because it's Dave. I mean, he could look at a guitar. Yeah, this guitar's unplayable. Hold on a second, and then they hand it back to you and go, "Wow, this feels great." But that one was where the electronics didn't work. I think that was in New Jersey. But
Larry, I think one of the things that made him so great about, you could hand it to him, and then when you got it back, it felt so good. He paid attention to you as a player.
Yes.
So he never took and look, I sent a lot of guitars up to Dave for him to set up, but I mean, I sent him stuff to fix, and he just didn't take a cookie cutter approach to.
Right.
Well, he needs a setup this way, that way. He wanted to hear from you specifically.
Yeah.
How are you going to use it? You know, what do you prefer, and why do you prefer it? And I think, I think that's why they were so great when they came back, because I don't think he set my guitars up the same way he set up Anthony's. I mean, he set them up for me.
Yeah,
And,
no, he remembered too. He remembered how you like to set up, and he would set it up that way all the time.
Right.
I sent him an old Les Paul once, and I had gotten a new wiring kit from RS that I wanted put in, and I had some new pickups and everything. And it was an older Les Paul from the late '80s that has been abused, really. I mean, I call it well loved, but I'm pretty hard on my instruments. And I sent it up to him, and he opened the cavity up, and he calls me on the phone when he was like, "Yeah, I got it all. This is not going to be a problem." Who soldered all of this garbage in your cavity? Well, I did, Dave.
Oh, no.
He said, "Throw your soldering iron away and stay away from guitars."
That's David.
Yep. That's awesome. How about we get a story from Vince? Vince, how did you come across Dave?
Well, I met Dave through Larry a very long time ago. I guess I remember, I think the first time I met Dave, he was playing guitar, rhythm guitar with Larry on stage. And then we just got to talking, and it was, like everybody says, very easy to talk to kind of guy. And that had to be like close to 30 years ago, and every time I would go see Larry, Dave was there. So we would just talk and hang out. And a lot of the times after the gigs, we'd wind up going to diners and ordering way too much food and staying out way too late. And he was a big Van Halen fan, and of course I am too. And recently I picked up a EVH Frankenstrat, and he gave me some pointers. I gave him a call and said, "Hey, I grabbed one of these guitars. What do you think of them?" And he loved them, and and then I would watch the show, both when Ty had it and when Dave had it with Ben, and. And a lot of the times I'd watch, and I'd watch with the volume off because I was teaching. And then I'd jump in at the end of the show and just say hi real quick. So, I never got to be on the show, but I'd always try and make it a point to watch, even if I had the volume down, just so that there was the extra number there, and I'm supporting my bud. And, there were times where, let's see, there was a gig where Larry did a guitar sort of clinic performance at a school where I taught, and Dave came with him. And I think, we lost Larry. I think it was when Larry and Dave went shopping for that Les Paul for Larry, and he had it with him because they just were fresh from the store. Mm-hmm. And I never saw Larry with a Les Paul, so it was like, what? And Dave was like, "Yeah, that's my fault." And it was, that was a really fun time. But again, after that clinic and we hung out, we went to the diner and ordered way too much food and talked guitars till they threw us out. But yeah, Dave was always easy to talk to. Like if I had a question, I could call him up and just say, "Hey, I know we haven't spoken in like a year or 2 months or 6 months or 3 years," but it was like just picking up where you left off with him. It didn't matter how much time went by. Yeah. It was just like, "Oh yeah, Dave, Vince, we're just hanging." It didn't matter. That happened again. I'm going to say recently, but it was already like 4 years ago almost, at the Steve Vai weekend, Vai Academy. And that was when I first met you, Desiree. That was the first time I met you.
Yes.
And I hadn't seen David in a while before that. And again, we just picked up right where we left off.
Right.
I believe we had a drink together up at the bar up there, and Andy Timmons was there, and that was the weekend David had gotten that Andy Timmons model.
Yep.
And Andy was upstairs, and Dave was like, "Oh, I wish I can get him to sign the guitar." And I was like, "Of course you can. Let me go talk to him," because I've known Andy for a while, on and off through the years, and Andy and I were talking earlier, and I'm like, "Yeah, Andy, this is David. Can you sign his guitar?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, sure." And then just so many easygoing stories with David, and unfortunately I was going to be on the show to show off some of the Les Pauls, whatever side they're on over there, and we were going to talk, and I had like a million questions planned for him about serial numbers and stuff like that. And I believe because I teach, I was never able to get on to the show, so I had a week off over Christmas, and unfortunately he got sick that week and canceled the show, so I wasn't able to get on. But I'd pop him a birthday wish and a get well wish here and there and stuff like that. But I'll miss him. He was always just genuine and on point, if you will. Yeah.
Well, I will say I'm planning on carrying on the Guitar Town Hall name to some extent.
Awesome.
I already do a couple of shows a week on this channel, but hey, Thursdays have become free, and I'm not saying every Thursday, but I'd like to do some Thursday shows, and I'd rather call it that than anything else. And if any of you guys, obviously, I would love to have on. And I remember I was watching a show last night, and Charles Green at the end of it had said something to the effect like he's like, we're literally going to be talking about Dave for years because he's just going to come up in conversation, like, where did you hear this? Where did you hear that? That's just the way it is, in many ways. And I'd like to, obviously continue these friendships, because if it wasn't for Dave, I wouldn't have met all you fine folks. And, like I think of getting out to the NAMM show in 2019 and seeing Rob and Pete, and it's just like, hey, and hugs all around. And, the rest of you, I definitely want to meet in person at some point, And Johnny, we actually met at NAMM the next year briefly, because you're busy going this way, I'm going that way, but still he takes the time. It's like, oh, you want a photo? Let's grab a photo. So, and I'm bad for that at NAMM shows, because that way, going forward, if I down the road say have Johnny on, I got a thumbnail already of the two of us together.
Well, I think I broke your camera that day too. I told you I break cameras, man, when people get pictures of me. So,
I don't know how that's possible, Johnny. You look great to me. So.
Well, thank you, brother.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it was a pleasure being so close to him.
Yeah.
I've been playing, some incarnation of a Wolfgang for a long time. Before that, maybe I was an Ibanez guy. So being around him, he's like, you got to try new things. Like, and then he would just, to be in his chair in his living room, be like, check this out. Like, tell me how you think this feels. And he'll just hit you with a ton of guitars. And again, just knowing him, so he was definitely, he has an affinity for, many guitars. But he's a big Telecaster guy, right?
Yeah.
I actually started playing Les Pauls because of him too. It's just funny. There's a lot of guys talking about, playing a Les Paul for the first time. Because to him, I'm one of them. I'll never play a Tele. Nothing against Teles. I'm not going to play that guitar. So every time, like, a few of them, they're like feeling really good. It's like, you got to play this guitar. I'm like, I'm not touching it. You get so mad. You got to play. I'm like, I'm not playing a Tele. Get away from me. I'm like, he's like, that's messed up, man. He got all bent out of shape. And then it just became a joke. Like, I would never touch a Tele in his presence. You got him. Nope, not picking it up. He's so frustrated with me. It was great. It was nice being close to him. I mean,
and always, I think we've all said, he was always available for a conversation. I'm thinking when I got my Wolfgang and my Ernie Ball, I'm thinking, I don't know what these things are worth. Really, you can go on Reverb and somebody could be asking 10 times what they're worth or whatever. And so I thought, well, I said to the guy, do you mind if I snap a couple photos? And he's like, no problem. So I snapped some, photo of the top, photo of the serial number, sent them off to Dave, and just said, hey, sorry to bother you, because at that time we didn't talk. This is a few years ago. We didn't talk all the time or anything. And immediately he's like, yeah, this is this, and this is exactly what it is. And I didn't know what the hell I was looking at. And I'm glad he told me. And, he's like, if you can get it for this price, you can't go wrong. And if you need a hand flipping them, let me know. If you need to forward them. I'm like, yeah. Okay. Thank you. And then I texted him, 20 minutes later, deal's done. He goes, which one did you get? And I said, both.
Nice.
That's a good point, Ben. One of the things Pete mentioned it a second ago too is one of the things that Dave had a huge effect on me with, a guy like me having, probably one of the biggest Van Halen guitar collections in the world, or around, whatever, one of them anyways. Dave always respected that because Dave had a massive Van Halen guitar collection too at one point. Yeah. But one of the things Dave always did to me was he as much as he appreciated that and understood that and helped me understand that stuff too, and we would talk about the Van Halen stuff all the time because that was just our passion. He turned me on to other guitars and other types of music. I remember the first time when Dave. Yeah, I remember the first time Dave, told me you gotta listen to Larry Mitchell. You gotta listen to this guy. This guy is just incredible. And I didn't know Larry at the time. I mean, Larry, you and I met a couple of times. We met at NAMM back in 19, I remember. But I remember I was watching a video of Larry playing, and I'm like, holy crap, this is just amazing. This huge, big Bradshaw switching, wet, dry, wet kind of sound with all these different effects. But just an amazing player. Dave was just a huge inspiration in like showing me different types of guitar players. Dennis is an amazing guitar player. But just, not just the guitar players like, Larry and Dennis, and expanding my horizon and appreciation for music that way, but different guitars. I'll look at, it's not just, people would look at what I have and what I post and stuff like that and say, oh, the guy's a Van Halen guy. Well, yeah, I am. But I also have an appreciation for different guitars too. And like Pete was saying, I never thought I'd see the day Pete's playing a Les Paul. I mean, not that he couldn't play it, because Pete's also a great guitar player. But Pete got into playing Les Pauls, and it's like, Dave had that effect on people. He had that way of saying, hey, this is really cool. It's great you do this, but what about this? And that's something that I also learned from him.
Yeah, Dave, one of my favorite guitars that I have is a 63 SG Junior reissue. And I never bonded with SGs ever. And I was on tour, we were there, and we decided to stop at Sam Ash. And the sales guy, I can't remember his name right now, recognized me. So we were talking for a little bit. And Dave walks over and interrupts the conversation, goes and hands me an SG Junior. And goes, you need to play this. I go, I don't like SGs. He goes, no, you need to play this guitar. I go, Dave, the neck weight is weird, and it's just a weird guitar for me. He goes, just play it. So I sat down and played it and fell in love with it. And I bought it without even plugging it in. It had one P90. And Dave's like, yeah, I know, that's the guitar. I think that's a great guitar. It turned out to be really great. And I still didn't really know what I had until I was producing a record. And I went to grab one of my tellies to do a solo, to do a guitar part. And the SG Junior was sitting on a stand there. I picked it up and plugged it in for the first time. And it sings. It's absolutely a great. I played a bunch of other ones, but that particular one that like Dave does, Dave finds these gems, and he got me to play an SG Junior and I love it. I use it a lot on different productions, but it's not something I would normally pick up ever.
Right.
Yeah. It's just like the Les Paul, But
he was like a guitar drug dealer. Like,
yeah, he was.
Hey, come here.
Right.
Yeah. Try this. This is the good stuff.
This will make you feel good. This will make you feel good.
Yeah. You like that? Here, try this designer stuff. Oh, it's really going to knock your socks off.
Yeah.
Dave was
really
Dave had a way of, Larry. I don't know. I don't know if you know this, but we'll tell you now. Dave. Also, I used your guitar for the Tonight Show gig that I did for this kid Kygo. It was like a I don't know, like electronic music guy or whatever, emo or whatever it was, and you happen to have a couple of guitars you were he was hanging on to.
Okay.
For you, rather, at his place, and one of them was a nylon string goated.
Oh yeah.
And I needed a nylon string for the gig, and Dave's like, "Yeah, just take this one." But it's Larry's, and it'll be fine. So thank you, Larry. I don't know if you knew that, but
I didn't. But it's Dave. So
but it's Dave.
It's all good. It's
I mean, and I was, that's the thing with Dave too. Like I treated he and I treated each other's gear like it was our own, and by extension, yours and anybody else's who happened to be in his space, and so there's that, and I met you through him. We met all of us here. We're all here because of him. Johnny, I've never met you personally. Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you, brother.
And it's
a couple of thumb pickers right there. I'm just saying. I'm taking, I'm patting myself on the back. I got multiple thumb pickers on a hang. Yeah. That's a rare thing these days.
Listen, Johnny, I got a couple of True Fire things of yours. I've already lifted a few of your licks.
Brother!
Yeah. One of your licks, there's a lot of information. It's a lot of notes, a lot of information. So you pull out a couple of things. All right, I'm going to take that. I'm going to use that. So thank you.
I'm so tickled to hear that, man. Thanks so much.
I should pay Johnny. I should pay Johnny a commission for everything I've taken from him.
Oh,
and in fact, you're talking about Dave was so generous with everything, and he was so passionate about not only playing the guitar but getting out and playing the guitar. And Dennis, I had a similar experience with him too, and where we didn't know each other very well. And this is pre-pandemic, and I was out on a country gig. And I was between tellies, and I was playing a Strat, and he saw online that I was playing a Strat, and he was like, "Why aren't you playing a telly on that gig?" And I was like, "Well, I'm between tellies right now, and I hadn't found the right one." He said, "Let me send you one. Where are you going to be this weekend?" He sent me a telly.
Wow.
So and it was a custom shop guitar, and it was a terrific guitar, and I had it for a minute, and I sent it back, and I hated to send it back, honestly.
Yeah.
But that was just him. It was just him.
When I lived there, when he and I lived together, Larry, you had a Nags, one of your Nags guitars. It was a semi-hollow.
Oh yeah, the Chenna,
mm-hmm. Right? And I guess it was there for storage for a little while, whatever it was, and I had picked it up, and I was doing some kind of Myrtle Travis thing, and Dave broke out his phone, and he's like, "Hey, go ahead, record that," and it's always that thing with, "Oh man, I'm probably gonna screw this up." I just happened to get through it with nary a mistake. Like I skated right through, and I still have
to hear that.
Yeah, I'd like to hear it. I think I have it somewhere. I know it's probably Desiree. It's got to be on Dave's computer somewhere.
What? I'm sorry. I'm getting sidetracked over here on this side. What?
No, there's a video of me playing Larry's Nags Chenna. I was doing like a
Is it on here?
It might be on his phone. It might be on his computer somewhere, but it was.
When you come over, we'll look.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave, it's funny.
Can I need to interrupt one moment, guys.
No.
So we're going to. Did someone say no?
No, I said go.
Oh, he said no. I'm like, no. So we're going to switch out here. I have someone that I want to bring in. My dad wants to say something before he goes, but then I have someone that I'm going to bring to sit next to me. Go ahead, Dad. You can talk.
Thank y'all all for your kind words. And he just was something else. I was so proud to have him for a son-in-law, and I was really proud of him. And I just thank y'all all for being so kind. And Anthony, you knocked me out of the chair when I seen you. Wait, I thought he'd passed away. And I just want to say thank y'all a whole bunch, and I've enjoyed your talk about him. And thank you a whole bunch.
What you put?
Take care, Earl.
Thank you, Earl.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Earl.
Thank you, Earl.
Okay.
All right, you got it? Yeah. Careful. careful. All right,
That's
now
all. That was great.
my special guest of the night is the one and only my mom, well, Dave's mom.
Your mom.
Yep, I wanted her to be here with us as well to listen to your stories, and so we're switching out people here real quick on this side.
Hi, Bev.
Hey, Bev.
Guys, how are you?
How you doing, Bev?
Bev, can I go first? I want to say something. I got to go first.
Wait. So now Dave is really like, what the hell is going on in my house? First you get Desiree, and then now you have my mom. So he's probably like, how do y'all do this? Okay.
I got to interject. So when I lived with, and Bev, I think you know this, but when I lived there with Dave, I was the beneficiary of many of your meals because Dave would eat. He never liked leftovers. So and I always was waiting for the chicken cutlets.
Chicken cutlet, correct.
The breaded chicken cutlets. Those came over. I was like, all right, Dave's I'm in. I'm golden. He's gonna eat them the first night, and the rest are gonna be for me. I will
and what
phase those out.
What was amazing is that Dennis didn't care whether it was heated or not. He just took that fork and ate it. It was like, and I'm like, as a mother, oh no, let me heat it up. Let me make it warm for you. Do you want it with sauce on it? Do you want it with Parmesan or whatever? And he was just so happy that Dave did not eat that stuff left over.
Dave, and I didn't. I used to talk. Dave, you've got all this food in here. Okay.
He did not like leftovers. He hated leftovers.
No, and he hated my cooking.
Really?
There you go. He hated my cooking. Yes.
Well, Bev, I loved your cooking. I know. And he was always afraid there'd be an onion in something. So an onion or cheese. Forget it. It was just like, I guess because when he was young, to keep him quiet, he would get a piece of cheese, American cheese, and he would squash it into everything, on the table, on the floor, under his shoe. And I guess he just carried it all the way up to, the point hated
of
onions. Hated it. It's like a
hated it unbelievably. But yet he would eat, sprinkle Parmesan cheese on whatever.
Yes, I never understood that. I'm like, babe, that's cheese. And he's like, no, it's different. It's not real cheese.
Not the same.
Not the same.
You would crap out of there. You want to sprinkle something on, it's fine. I totally get that.
Yeah. Well,
I was, like I said, I was a beneficiary, and I eat everything. If it spells food, I'm in. Bring it. I like it. Not particularly picky. It was tasty. So Dave was great. Dave was also good for because when I lived there, all three cats were there, and Brandy.
Yes.
And Dave and I had many a laugh over like Eddie and Alex, and Sammy was young and sort of a pain in the ass.
Still is.
Alex, but Sammy is mellowed. He was nasty then, and Alex was the most affable cat. I love the fact that he named him after the Van Halens. The whole thing was great to me. And Brandy was just I've known Brandy since Dave got her. So it was and I was
wonderful.
And I was Uncle Dennis. That's how Dave introduced me and whatnot. So it was all it was so there were many fond memories, Bev, and I had to immediately, as soon as I saw it, I was like, right, chicken cutlets.
Score.
I'll keep on making them. They'll be here.
I remember the Uncle Dennis. Oh my God, because Dave would be like, Brandy, Uncle Dennis is coming. Uncle Dennis is coming over. And she'd just jump up and she'd be like all excited, looking at the door.
Yeah.
As soon as he said Uncle Dennis, she's like, I'm here.
She's a good egg.
I'm just thinking how nice it'd be to get home after a gig in the middle of the night and have some of Bev's leftovers in the fridge. Like that's just the capper to a night right there.
Yeah.
That's a typical mother thing.
Oh yeah. Beautiful thing for sure.
Yeah.
I can attest to that because my mother quite often would make up a plate for me to have in the fridge whenever I gigged. That and always texted me, rock on.
Rock, yeah. Yeah.
It's like she knew when sound check was.
Right.
I don't know how she knew.
She knew. Mothers know.
You know, guys, you were all talking about how how good a tech Dave was and how knowledgeable he was and whatever. And I always thought, he and I would rib one another, because I would rib him and I'll rib you guys the same way. It's all good. Because I'd look at him like he had just gotten back that beat up Strat from Larry with the Floyd Rose on it. So when he gave it to Larry, I said, "Well, what are you giving it to him for?" "Oh, I'm putting a Floyd Rose on it." And I was like, "Why would you do that? Why would you ruin a perfectly good guitar with a Floyd Rose?"
There it is.
Wow. He's not the first. He's not the first.
Not the first, right? But interestingly enough, so I got to strum it a little bit. It was just last week or whatever, because he had gotten it back recently, maybe a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, actually, you know what? This is cool. Like right after he got it back, I guess I was like, oh, this is pretty good. I see why he did that, And he and I were like different when it came to, like, we loved old, classic guitars and Fenders, Gibsons, Ricks, and all that, all the Gretches and all that fun stuff. But we were different in how we set guitars up, and I would rib him all the time, And if I borrowed a guitar from him, he would say, like, "All right, Dennis, just put the action back to where I like it."
He loved a low action. He loved it.
I couldn't play it. It was too low for me, but that's how he liked it. And I knew how he had it set. I knew he had that Floyd Rose Allen key.
He would He would not measure it with a ruler. He had the Allen keys, and he was
on the 12th fret. The Allen key on the 12th fret. Yeah, Dave taught me that. I still use
that's
that.
how he taught me that too, Rob.
DNH did the same thing to my guitars. He'd have the action so low I couldn't even play them.
Right.
Like, boy, just up, just a little bit, man, please, just a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
Just get them off the fret, just off the fret, brother.
That's the thing Dave and I had in common. Dave and I had that in common. We both love a super, super low action to the point of almost buzzing, because you could do all the tapping stuff easier that way. I mean, the harmonics don't necessarily ring out as loud. And it's so funny because so many of you folks that, are in the chat that watch, and Pete, I know Bill, from Van Hagar, he likes a high action. I can't even play the thing. My fingers are slipping off the strings and they're popping off, and I can't play a guitar with a high action. And Dave was so good like that. Like, he showed me how to get that action to the point where it's so low, but it doesn't buzz. And you're right, Anthony, is that he takes that Allen key, the Floyd Rose clamp Allen key, and he puts it at the 12th fret. And if it just barely touches, Ty, you said it too.
Yeah.
It just barely touches it. That's the key. And it's like, I was just setting one of my guitars up the other day, and I'm like thinking of Dave, it's like, there's just so many little things, that Dave showed me over the years, like, oh, okay, this is the Nesdale way of setting stuff up,
Right.
He just had that touch. But at the same time, Dave, as much as he liked that action, if Dennis came to him, or Larry came to him, or Anthony or anybody and said, "Hey, Dave, can you set my guitar up?" He knew how to set it up how they wanted it to. It wasn't just how David Nesdall wanted it set up. He knew how to set it up for them. He had that magic touch, and that was such a special thing about him.
Yeah, I would rib him. I mean, I would say to him, again, I grab like his 335. I grab some new guitar he got. Strumming him. I look at him and I go, this would be great. This would sound really good if your Rose brought the action up. and he just looked at me and be like, "Fuck you, Dennis."
I remember when he was showing off that Strat last week was our last show together. 1 week ago, he just got it back, and he's like, "It's finally playing right. It's finally playing right." After all these years, and he's so happy, and and he was always on the hunt for a setup or a part or a new guitar. And I swear, every new guitar was like seeing the guy get his first dream guitar. Not his first morning every time. Dream guitar, like opening a case with a Les Paul for the first.
You bring up a good point. He was always like, "This is my favorite guitar." I'm like, on Tuesday. Sunday, this is my new favorite guitar. I'm like,
hey, try co-hosting a show with him where he's saying that every third week. And I'm like, but Dave, it's not Andy. It's no one Dave watches us, I don't know.
Then I'm like, where did that guitar go? I hated that guitar.
He called me when
Like, that was your favorite guitar, Dave.
Not anymore.
he called me.
Or how many times would he get a new guitar, and as soon as he gets it, he'll show it off. This is great. I love this guitar. It's perfect. And then literally it'll be the next week's show, and you show it off. Okay, I changed this, and this because they didn't get it right at the factory.
Yeah.
Now it looks like a real whatever that it was supposed to be like. If it's a 61 reissue, he's like, no, Gibson didn't do this, and this right. I got the parts. Here they are. And then he holds it up, and you're like, yeah, that looks like a 61.
Ben, you remember the last show I did with you guys, Ben, when, I think that's when you and I first met on camera for YouTube. But Dave was waiting for the new Kiesel Retro Solo to come out, and the first thing he did was say, Highland, you can't get that guitar in, man. You got to put some – he knew I was a big Danny Gatton nut. So he's like, man, you got to have some of those tall knurled knobs, man. So I actually teared up today because I put my hand on the Ziploc baggie he sent me with his Dave Nesdall picks and then 2 knurled knobs for that guitar. So I still have them, and I literally put my hands on the bag today, and I literally did. I teared up. I was like, man, I'm so glad I've got these. So
I remember that. Yeah, he's like, you need those. And you're like, you're right, I do. He's like, well, yeah. I got the next. And of course, they're sitting on the desk right there within hands reach.
And I told him, I said, man, it's really hard to find those really tall knurled knobs like Danny used to use. I got some right here, man. I'm going to put them in the mail to you.
Yeah.
And I have them. I have not put them on yet, but I found the bag today, and I was just, like I said, it teared me up, man. So I'm glad he did. But, you couldn't leave a guitar stock, man, with Dave. Not at all.
No, not at all.
I just put foam. He has that Les Paul special, and when he got the guitar, he wanted me to help him put foam underneath the bridge pickup to raise it up. The only foam he had, he's like, yeah, I got some foam over here. I was like, all right. It's like an uneven piece of foam, like packing foam from I don't know where. That's the okay. All right, we'll try it. So I kind of jerry rigged something, and it worked for a while. But he's like, I said, Dave, I think I've got better foam, at my place. And that's what we would call one another up. If I didn't have something, Dave, do you have, I had a Firebird for a moment. I was considering keeping, but and I needed some gold strap buttons. I was like, Dave, you got any gold strap buttons? Yeah, Dan, I got some, and you go digging around and boom, I got him, Dan. All right, great. Because I only live 5 minutes away from him. I'm right down the street. So I drive over there and grab him, and that's how we were always that way with one another. But I called. It was just last week. I grabbed his special because I wanted to check it out. Considering getting another. I've got Larry. I've got an SG Junior as well. So when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, that guitar is killer. Well, So I was considering maybe I'll get an SG special. So I wanted to check out his Les Paul special anyway. And I said, well, I have the guitar. I'll put the foam in. So I just did that for him, and it was tricky, whatever. But I said, Dave, I got it. I said, you'll be all right. And he's like, oh, thanks, man. And then he grabbed the guitar, and I had readjusted the action for where I like it. And I didn't put it back. I'm like, let's see if he noticed.
Yeah, of course he did.
I hand him the guitar, and he's like, he looks at it, and he goes, you got to lower the action. Damn it. All right. I was like, come on, man, just leave it the way it is. It sounds really good. But no, I brought it back down for him. I said, but your guitar will be fine, man. That pickup won't sink anymore. It's
he really knew his stuff. I remember, say spotting a guitar. I remember Larry, you were on Johnny's channel with Jay. I think you were in the same room together. And Jay comes on at the beginning of the show, holds up your guitar, and all we could see was the fretboard from about the 2nd fret to the 8th, just in the corner of the frame. And immediately he's like, what are you doing with Larry's guitar? I'm like, how? Well, it doesn't have some unique grain that's, blatantly obvious, but he knew right away. He's like, that's Larry's guitar. And he could see just the edge of the color of the neck, and he knew right away. And I was just like,
because he worked on it so much. He knew it. Yeah, he could spot him. One of the things I truly love about him, like we were talking about before, was that he can open the case up of a new guitar like it was like he was 12. And it was like, I think we should all strive for that. to remind you why you started playing guitar. When you open that case up, so excited to play guitar. It's really easy when you have a bunch of guitars to take things for granted and just kind of go, oh yeah, I'm going to play this guitar now. But when he got into guitar, it was like the best thing ever.
Yeah, it was.
Enthusiasm is so contagious, right? And he was so enthusiastic about it all. I remember I had one of the first times when Dave connected me with Rob. I remember one of the things I was so struck about Rob was his enthusiasm for the detail that he and Dave put into building these guitars and replicating these guitars, and it is contagious. And really it's inspiring, Larry, and it reminds us all, to appreciate the present, what's in the very moment.
Yeah.
Sure.
He was
Listen, this is exactly what he would have wanted. He would have wanted sitting around moping over this. He would want us to celebrate and be happy and carry the torch of love of music and love of guitars. And I would have some help for Desiree. I hope this is what you could use right now, right? I mean, this is we all love it.
You know what, Pete? Though I would say the one thing that I'm going to miss the most, and I don't want to turn this into a negative thing. It's a positive thing. It's just unfortunately a negative effect that it has on us because we can't necessarily talk to Dave. You can still talk to him, but the one thing that I think I'm going to miss the most is I would get excited when I would talk to Dave. Hey, I'm going to come out and see you in a couple of weeks. He'd be like, all right, let me know then. Let me know when, because I got to tell Desiree when. Make sure she's okay with it. Whatever. I say, all right. So how about this day? Yeah, I'll get back to you. I'll let you know if it's okay. But it would always be okay. It was never a question because everybody wants to see me. That's a joke. Desiree would be like, that's my Dave. He can come out as long as there wasn't something going on or whatever. So it'd be all right.
Play nicely.
Yeah, right, exactly. So for the next week, I was all excited. Okay, I'm going to go out and see Dave. All right, so what guitars am I going to bring? And Dave like, hey, bring this one. I want to see this one. You had this would work done or whatever. So we'd both be like conniving, like thinking like, ooh, what kind of trade are we going to do or whatever? Because we were always trading stuff. I could never go to David Nesdall's place and leave with everything I had.
Yeah.
Or leave with not something new. It was always something had to stay, but something else had to come back. So it was always cool like that. But I think the biggest thing I'm going to miss is as the time was getting closer and closer. Okay, I'm going to spend the weekend at Dave's house this week, or Dave and Desiree's, I should say. And the day that it would come, I'd get up early. I'd grab my dog Barney. He'd usually come with me, whatever. We'd get together. We'd drive out, and it was always a fun trip out because we had this special. It was a 3.5-hour drive, closer to 4 if we hit traffic. But it was always a good time because I'd be blasting Van Halen the whole way out. And we'd make stops in Connecticut, New Haven, whatever, get a coffee, whatever, road soda. No, and anyways, I'd get out there, and as soon as I'd pull up, Dave would text me, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Park in front of this garage because there's like 3 garage bays. Make sure you park in front of this one. All right. So it was the coolest thing. It was like a kid in a candy store. Or on Christmas morning, I'd get out, and as soon as I'd walk in, there'd be Dave sitting in the chair with this big smile. Rob Johnson. It was so funny. As soon as I'd walk in, Rob Johnson. I'm like, "What's up, Dave?" And it was a big hug, and I'd always give him a kiss on the neck or the cheek, just because that's just how I am. And it was just great to see him. That is what I'm gonna miss. Is opening that door and walking in, and there's Dave just sitting there, all excited, spend the weekend. That was the coolest freaking thing. I'm gonna miss that so much.
Yeah.
That is one of my regrets, Rob, is not making that road down, prior to COVID, because things have changed since then. But I was still able to travel more at that time. And I remember talking to Dave, like one of our first hangouts together. I was like, wow, you got some really cool stuff. He goes, yeah, come on down, hang out for the weekend. We'll play some guitars, and I'll give you a list of stuff for you to bring. Yeah. Okay. You need anything set up? I'll set up some guitars while you're here. I'm like, wait, so I get to play vintage and custom shop guitars, talk gear, and then he goes, yeah, and then we'll go out for a meal. I'm like, sure, all right, and that is a huge regret of mine because, I'd hear you guys would be glowing for a week, whatever YouTube show would be on, and it was just like post honeymoon bliss. Oh, we did this, we did this, and awesome. Yeah.
It was.
I regret not coming over and hanging out too. That's one thing. I mean, I'm in New Jersey and very north, so it's a good at least 4 hours, maybe a little longer. But Dave invited me many times. Come on over. You could stay, but the other thing is I have pet allergies, so I wouldn't be able to stay. It would be just like a drive up, and then I'd have to drive back, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But all the times that we hung out at shows and those late diner food extravaganzas will always be remembered. I also remember when you guys were talking about the action. I've been a Parker Fly player for years, and the action on those are like a sheet of paper and then string and fret. Like that's how low the action is.
Yeah.
And I remember he was like, "Oh, can I try your guitar?" I'm like, "Sure." And every time someone goes to play my guitar, I say, "You're gonna hate it because the action is so low that if you breathe, it's gonna start playing." And after I said that, he goes, "That's the way I like it, though." And he starts playing, and he looked so like comfortable on it. And I was like, "Oh man, he's like, you can't have this back." And I was like, "Yeah, I have to have that one back because my wife bought it for me." But yeah.
Hey, Beverly.
Yeah.
Can you tell us when Dave started playing guitar?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. It dates back many, many, many years.
Thank you, Sarah.
How old was he?
He was about 5. He used to sit outside on the steps.
I have a picture, right?
We had a
Let me go get the picture.
A tenant that played guitar, and he used to listen to him play, and he would say, "Mom, I want to play guitar like that." And we bought him a guitar, and from there he became the David that he is and was. And I don't remember a day go by that he didn't have a guitar in his hands. Of course, he traded on and off forever, so they never lasted that long. But eventually, some would come back again that I would remember. And it was just his life. It were his children. He's my David, but he's so special, and there's so much that I could say, but I can't say at this point. So I'm just enjoying you guys and your tribute to Dave. And he's listening, and he's just part of all of this and loving every one of you.
Yeah.
So, Ben, can you zoom in on me?
I can.
Oops.
This is when he was about, I'm going to say 8, and he had to have the best all the time. It wasn't just to go and buy him, a toy, or, he's going to use it for a couple of days or whatever. This went on and on and on. And
yeah.
He became.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
It's amazing.
That's great.
Yeah.
So those
He's a good boy.
Those of you that would be here Saturday, we have several pictures kind of like this, and of course others with him holding guitars that everybody would get to look at. That will be here Saturday for the memorial.
Yeah, that's great. Well, yeah, I went on Dave's birthday. I had shared a couple of photos on Facebook from a wedding gig that we had done back in like 1999. I sat in with the band that he was in at the time, and I'm looking at the photos, and I was like, "We looked like that."
Yeah,
I don't remember that. Like, I mean, I do, but it's like I'm looking at Dave, going, "Jesus, I don't remember Dave looking like that. I don't remember me looking like that. What the hell is going on right now?" And that was right around the time that he had really gotten me going on Les Pauls, because he was he was into them, and my God, yeah, he you talk about trading guitars away, right? And he had many of mine. I have, a few of his, and I will miss talking to him about. I mean, all the guitar stuff, but even just life stuff,
Yeah.
Just whatever it was, day to day. Even though I was going to gigs, sometimes I was driving home, from a gig, I would talk to him, or on my way to a gig. Oftentimes on the way to the gig, especially in the last year or so, they call me, Den, where are you playing tonight? I'm doing this, or I'm flying here. I got this to do, that to do, whatever. And you go, all right, that's cool. What guitar are you bringing? What are you playing through? It's like, but the life stuff was really a special thing too.
Yeah,
and
true.
I enjoyed the time that I had. When we lived together, it was good. It was a good setup. Two guys are both guitar players. We weren't bothering one another. It was all good. We were bothering a person upstairs, but whatever.
I was thinking, Beverly, how many noise complaints with these two guys in that unit?
We don't want to go into that.
Sometimes I liked it when you did that, Dennis.
Well, you're
I'm just
speaking
thinking,
about
you meet
what's going on.
You meet Dave, and he's the guy with the wet rig in his living room. Like, other than a few guys have that in a dedicated spot. Dave's like, no, right in the living room. Like, that's where else would you have it?
That's so awesome.
Yeah, it was fun. That was fun.
Guys, I think one thing I'd like to add before I have to jump off, unfortunately, but one thing I'll always be grateful for with Dave, too, is how much he cared about guitar artistry. How much he cared about, like when he had me on the show, it was so, man, let's promote your new record, and let's promote your JH6 Kiesel, and let's promote this and promote that. He really, really did care about making sure that the artists that were on the shows, the YouTube shows, had proper promotion, and that he really did care about the artistry. And I think that's something that I will never forget about him, is how much care he put into each show, and Ty as well, and Ben as well. I mean, I'm so grateful to you guys, but I know starting my friendship with Dave, it was more about the show we were fixing to do, but yet I think his caring came through more than anything, and I'll never forget that about Dave. And any guitar player that got to be a part of the show always will remember that about Dave, and he really was such a special guy. So, again, I thank y'all for having me on with you tonight. It means a lot to me.
Thank you for being on.
Thank you,
Johnny.
Yeah,
Thanks, Johnny.
Thanks, Johnny.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, my friend.
Yeah, y'all have a blessed night, and
you too, Johnny.
Saturday.
Hey, Johnny.
I'll talk to you soon, Johnny.
Yeah, buddy. You call anytime. Any of you.
Thank you.
Take care, Johnny.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, I just want to say that too. I would always watch the show, and then I'd chime in at the end because I'd be teaching. And every single time after I said, hey, Dave, hey, guys, and when Dave finally saw the comments, he'd go, oh, Vince Janelle is here, and he'd always make it a big deal. He's such a great guitar player, and I'm going to have him on the show one of these days when we can get the schedules to meet up. And I always felt like, man, you don't have to do that. Like, I'm just here to say hi, and like, I just felt like, it's just too much attention. I just wanted to like hang out and enjoy what you guys were talking about. But he always made it.
He always taught me that, if you see somebody in the chat, especially somebody that's in the business, mention it, like I always try to do that myself whenever possible, for that reason. Because it's the music business, and Dave always, he always kept that in his back pocket.
And you're
add someone else to the stream now, Mr. Jay Hannon.
What's up, Jay?
Hey, Jay.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Jay.
Hello. I'm sorry to join in late, but we had to get the kiddos to bed, and then when I tried to join, it was packed like sardines, so I wasn't able to join. But I didn't want to have.
Glad you can make it in, Jay.
I didn't want to have anybody bumped, just to get me in. So
Hi, Jay.
That giant cane, start playing the end music, right?
Yeah. So
What's up, buddy? How you doing?
how you guys doing? So
good, doing all right.
You always come in at the wrong time. Like everyone's talking and telling stories, and then I got to come in, or somebody's got to come in, and then everything gets kind of derailed. But
it's like the kid that shows up late for class, right? Because you had a dentist appointment or something, and as soon as that door opens, everyone looks. Oh, Billy did make it to school.
Yeah. So
I'm glad you made it, my friend. Definitely.
Yes.
Me too.
Yeah, definitely.
So how did you meet Dave, Jay? We've been
Well,
doing how we met Dave stories.
Just I was interested in getting one of the I guess it would have been the USA EVH Wolfgang signature, and I was searching for it on YouTube, and a video, like all of a sudden videos of Johnny and Dave started popping up in my suggested videos. I'm like, what are these guys? What is this? So I'd start watching, and the next thing you know, I'm watching more, and I'm watching more, and I'm like, what is going on? Why am I watching this stuff? And the live streams would happen, and I get involved in the chat, and they were super cool. And so next thing you know, I ordered the guitar. A few months later, it came in, and I messaged Johnny and Dave, and Dave responded to me within like a day or maybe even less. And I said, hey, I'm getting one of these EVH signatures. They're really not out in the public yet. Like, would you guys be cool if I came on and showed the guitar and then, talked about it for a few minutes, and I'll jump off? And Dave responded like, yeah. So we set it up. He called me the day of, and we, shot the S for a couple minutes, and, just super cool, super nice guy. And obviously that started our friendship, which was what I've been 2017, like the middle or end of 2017. And obviously we remained friends ever since. But, I think I'm among a lot of people where you think you know a little bit about Van Halen, you think you know a little bit about guitars. And then it was very quickly I learned I didn't know shit about shit. And it's a very humbling experience, but there was so many things about I thought I knew how to set up an Ibanez. I set it up my way, and then you learn. I heard you guys talking about the Allen key thing and just certain things. And I would call Dave and like, hey, I got a guitar, and I think I know how to set it up, but something's going on, and he'd walk me through it, or we'd FaceTime, and he'd be like, no, what are you doing, Jay? Like, come on, let's just listen to me, and he sent a few guitars up to him. He set them up for me and sent them back. Obviously great setups, but now I feel like I'm rambling, but obviously I'm with everybody and saying that I miss him already. So, and it sucks that I told Desiree and Rob this as well, but it's a shame that I never had a chance to meet Dave. And that's going to always bum me out. So
true. I join you there. And I guess I'll tell my story about meeting Dave now, in a sense, because it was that night that Jay appeared on the show. I discovered right behind Jay. I was just weeks behind, basically. And so I tuned in. Yeah, I think that was the first show. And I tuned in because I was bored and I was doing a search on Eddie Van Halen, because I thought, well, you can talk about him more than anyone else because he was a guitar player and he owns a company. So that's got to be more conversation material. And I came across this live stream and I jumped in and I was like, oh, these guys seem cool. And there was a phone number in the description where you could send in a photo of your guitar. And I thought, well, I don't have anything like what these guys are talking about, but screw it. I'll send in a photo of my 67 Telly. So I sent it in. And all of a sudden, as soon as it was held up, Dave's like, hold on, stop the show. Exactly. And he's like, let me see that. He goes, that's real relicking. That's not some factory relic job. What is that? And immediately, because I said, well, I don't have a Van Halen guitar, but can I send this? And he's like, yeah, we like all kinds of guitars. And he saw it and immediately, he's like, yeah, hit me up on Facebook or something like that. And we became friends. And he's like, all right, tell me everything about that guitar. I'm like, okay. Gave him the story on it. And we just hit it off. And, that was so many, I was lucky to go on shortly after that and join you guys, and really enjoyed meeting Dave, and like that knowledge, because he could field question. Like, he was the ultimate Q&A guy. He could field a question on anything, and if he didn't know the answer, he'd quickly find out the answer, which was rare that he didn't know the answer.
I always loved how he would answer the question. You'd have a question for him, and he'd answer it and then give you a reference. Like, if you had some crazy Van Halen question, of course he knew the answer, and then he would point you to one of Rob's guitars that you can go see on Instagram about halfway down the scroll. Or you would have a crazy question about how to put the pitch factor into the wet, dry, wet thing, and he would say, go check out this guy Pete, and scroll halfway down, and you'll see that. And then you scroll to Pete's thing, and you see Eddie Van Halen's rig in his guitar room. I mean, he had an he had the answer, and then he had an example. And he could tie all of that together so well, and that's why I'll always remember Dave as this great connector of people, because he participated in all of our lives in different ways, yet the same way. And that was something that was always super cool.
Yeah, that's true. I remember when I asked Dave one time about, when he got to hang out with Eddie for that week in '98, and I said, hey, Dave, what was it like, when you got to meet Eddie back in the Gary Sharon days in 1998 in the 3 tour? And I said, did you get to play any guitars? And we were talking about actions and stuff like that earlier. Dave always loved a very super, super low action, and I do too. And he taught me how to set guitars up like that. And I remember I asked him, I said, did you ever get to play any of Eddie's guitars? And he said, yeah. He said, I got to play the purple PV Wolfgang that Eddie played in the '98 tour. Because Eddie, he played the tobacco one and he played the purple one in the '98 tour. And I said, what was it like? He said, you know what, Rob? He said, it had a super, super low action. That's what Dave liked. But he said, it just had that magic feel to it. And Dave and I used to have conversations about, you pick up a guitar at a guitar shop or somebody's house or whatever, or one of yours, and there's always one that you pick up, or maybe a couple, and it's super, 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 super special. It just rings out when you play it acoustically. It just feels incredible when you hit that chord. Some guitars feel amazing. Some feel kind of okay, whatever you said. But this guitar was one of those special ones that just felt absolutely incredible. And it was that purple PV Wolfgang. And I never forget that story he told me about that. It was pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
He lent me I had a session back in, it was like probably 2008, 2009 or so. It was with a buddy of mine. We're writing songs, and I wanted to write I wanted to do some kind of, I'm not like a Van Halen guy. The only thing I took from Eddie was his sense of aggression, that intensity that he had, but I was never, this kind of a guy, but, I wanted to do something, and I know I wanted to get a certain sound, and I know, Dave had that at the time. It was I think the only, Eddie or Van Halen type guitar, and happened to be one of Eddie's, It's like, dude, can I borrow that for this session? Of course, as Dave always was like, yep, go ahead, and I took pictures with it, to show him and whatever, and it worked out perfectly, and I enjoyed. I mean, it's not my action. I just took it for what it was, to get the sound that I needed to get, and I had a blast playing it. Like, look, this, it was, and he was so generous that way always with his own instruments, and he would call me up from time to time. Dan, can I check? It was just last week. I guess he was getting ready to do the show, and he wanted to show my one of my Rickenbackers, one of the ones he really likes. And he's like, Dan, can I borrow that? Absolutely, man. Go ahead and take it. So I brought it over, and that's when I took the special. And we were going to swap, and then I'm looking at him talking, and he's like, yeah, he's feeling tired. I was like, well, dude, why don't we just wait? If you're feeling a little under the weather, whatever, just wait until you're feeling better. You can take it anytime you want. And the way he would look at it, like we looked at each other's guitars. I don't know. I mean, I guess you guys do it. Like, you look at your friend's guitars, you're like, wow, that's a really good one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, but Dave and I would say to one another, I'd own that. Yeah, I'd own that. Sure. That definitely. But he didn't take it. We just, I said, Dave, I'm going to take your guitar, and I returned it to him later that day, when the special. Or maybe the next day, I fixed it, did what I had to do, and then brought it right back to him. But he would look at that My 381, that Rick, and just go like, wow. He'd lean back on the chair.
Lean back.
Lean back.
The Nesdale lean back. Yep.
Yeah.
The doctor is in.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't even talk to him when that chair leans back.
Oh yeah.
The world shuts off.
Yeah.
Let him be. Let him be.
I've got some videos of me. I had shot. I think I figured out a couple of guitar solos for a Gene Vincent tune. It was like I can't remember the name of the song, but it was a Cliff Gallup solos. So I had a Gretsch at the time, and I was recording myself so I could have it in case I forgot them. And behind me on that wall, there's Dave. He's got the sweatshirt on, the hood pulled up, and he's sitting down and he's looking at one of his guitars. Completely like he's just another thing, like a chair in the background, And there he is. I'm like, there he is. There's my buddy, as I'm doing my thing, so I can remember what the hell I had just figured out.
You're trying to work, and yeah.
It's like Obi-Wan Kenobi checking out his new lightsaber.
Oh, I loved it. Like I love that. I still have the videos on my phone, and there he is. He's just studying, studying his guitars.
Des, I believe you have a story to share.
I want to tell my story how I met David. You want to read that too? And then also afterwards.
Yeah, please.
Afterwards, I know some of you couldn't make it to the wedding. Sorry. So I want to read to you guys. So the lady who did our wedding, she did a love story for me and David. So I'd like to share that with you guys too. I'm sorry. I just took us all the way down. I'm sorry. So, the first part, this probably isn't going to sound too good on my part, but please try not to see it as the way it's going to come out, because I used to kill David when he'd tell the story like this. But I got to tell the story in David fashion. So me and my ex-husband used to watch the Johnny Bean show. And so we would watch, and it'd be Johnny and Dave and Rob. And I used to think, wow, that Dave guy, he seems like he knows a lot, but he's kind of cocky, So I'm like, I don't know about him. I'm like, he seems like he knows a lot, but he's just really cocky. So one day I'm like, I sent a friend request to Rob and to Dave, and then Dave accepted like immediately. And then he's like, hey, how are you? And we started talking. I'm like, and I told him, like, you don't sound I'm like, you're so nice. You don't appear anything like you do on the show. You're really, down to earth. You're really great. So fast forward some, I get a divorce. So me and Dave are still really good friends. We're talking, every day. And then one day he goes, well, I didn't want to tell you this because you were married and it would be inappropriate, but I think you're very pretty. You're very nice. You're sweet. He goes, I love your accent. You're very, very, I'd like to get to know you better. So I was like, sure, I guess, I've never really, went to meet somebody without knowing them. I'm like, I know you on YouTube, but okay. So, my divorce got final, and he's like, well, now that you're single, would you like to come see me? And I'm like, New York? Sure. Okay. So I came up here on his birthday, and the moment I got in the car, he's wearing a hoodie, of course, his blue hoodie. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, it's not that cold, but okay. He touched my hand. And I have to tell you, I felt butterflies. And I'm not the type of person who really believes in love at first sight. I'm not really the type of person who gets like all giddy like that. I'm like, I never expected it. And he just held my hand. But before, because he's a gentleman, he goes, do you mind if I hold your hand? I'm like, sure. And it was the most amazing feeling. And I knew at that moment, I thought I was crazy. I'm like, at that moment, I knew he was the one. I don't know how. Because like I said, I don't believe in that stuff. I just never believed in that. And when people tell me that, I'm like, you're crazy. There's no such thing as love at first sight. It doesn't happen. So, I stayed a couple of days with him. And then I went home. And I think for Mom's birthday, I came up here again because my boss was like, sure, have fun. Take off a couple of more days. Came up here for that. And it was just even a stronger connection. You know, we would talk every day on the phone. And I'm like, I can't believe this. I just got a divorce. I never thought I would feel this way for someone, and never this quickly. And so I was like, okay. And then we would talk, and he's like, so where are you going to move to? You know, you're got to sell your house and stuff. Where are you going to move to? And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, how about New York? I'm like, no. I said, never New York, and I would never get married again. I'm like, never. I'm just, no. So Dave, being the best at words, being the best that makes you feel like you're just the most amazing person in the world, changed my mind, obviously, on all of it. I moved to New York. My family thought I was crazy. They're like, what? You just met this guy. You're moving to New York. I'm like, no, you don't understand. If you met Dave, you would move to New York. He can sell you on anything. You know, he can make you feel like you're the most amazing person ever. When you're talking to him, he just had a way to make you feel important. It didn't matter. You could be talking about nothing, and he would make you feel like it's special. You know, you'd be talking about, oh, it's the sky's blue. He would make you feel like it's the most amazing blue sky you're talking about. So I came up here. I moved in with him, and it was just awesome. You know, we had Brandy. We had we had 2 cats here. And I felt bad because I was very allergic to the cats. And I'm like, Dave, can we please, I can't live here. I'm like, these 2 cats are killing me. My eyes are swelling. So Mom was nice enough to take one.
And I took one.
I got the evil one. And for some reason, I'm still with the evil one. I don't know. So it's just, and I remember I moved up here, and he's like, oh, you have, he saw Snickers. He loves Snickers. He would see her, when he went down to visit, we brought her back up here. And he would tell me, I have to be honest with you. When you first said you're coming up here, I was trying to figure out how to tell you not to bring that small dog with you. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? No, I'm not going anywhere with Snickers. I fought for that little thing. And he's like, yeah, I just don't like small dogs. And he's like, but you know what? She won me over, babe. He's like, I love her. I want to hold her all the time. So, those of you that did come to the house, even on the video here, you would never see her not with David.
Right.
So time flies, and then so one day we go out to eat, and it was like right before my birthday, I think 2018. Mm-hmm. And so we go to Ruby Tuesdays because he knows I like the salad bar. I love the salad bar, so he took me there. And it was right before EVH Con, one of the EVH Cons. So we're sitting there, and he's fumbling in his shirt, like his hoodie, of course. And he throws this box on the table. He goes, now, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, what the hell did I do? What do you because when a guy tells you, I need to talk to you, you're like, oh, shit, here we go. I'm like, oh, please, are we breaking up? I got a long way to go back home. Can we discuss this, And he goes, I have a question for you. And he's like, we're going to EVH Con. I'm like, yeah, I know that. He goes, do you want to go as my wife?
Oh, I remember.
Or do you not want to go with me at all? Or like girlfriend? Like he said, you want to go as my girlfriend? Or you want to go as my fiance? And I'm like, what? What? And he's like, open the box. And it was like the most amazing ring. And I'm like, fiance? He goes, is that a yes? And I'm like, yes, that's a yes. So David has had a way of just making things like just, I don't know, it's like amazing, like the littlest things. And you never know what he was going to do. You never know what he was going to say. And then on our wedding, we were going to have, like a basic wedding. But then COVID happened. So then we had to extend it. And then we had to extend it again. And then we had to change it again. And then one day he goes, babe, you're my princess. I want to have a fairy tale wedding for you because you never had that before. So then he came up with this extreme plan and made me have the most beautiful wedding ever. He was so amazing. Right when I came out, he started crying. So when I saw that, I was like, this is the guy that I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with. He shows so much love. And there wasn't a day that, we would have our fights like every other couple, but there was never a day that he did not make me feel like I was the most important thing in the world. The love that he would give me, even on days when he would feel so bad, and David didn't like anybody to know how bad he felt, even me. He would make me feel so special. And so, if you guys don't mind, I would like to share our wedding story with you. She called it our love story. So, she starts it off as the host, known as the Guitar Whisperer, was touted for his skills in the art of building and repairing guitars. One day, quite by chance, or perhaps not by chance at all, from her tiny little town in Iredell, Texas, population of 342, Desiree sent a Facebook request to the show. She wanted to ask a question. So what it was, I had asked David because my ex-husband wanted I think a PV guitar. I don't know. Don't hurt me on this. I don't know, PV. And so I'd asked him, like, hey, you know all about these guitars. Can you tell me how much they are? So that's how it started. Desiree and David began a casual conversation, which over the months turned into a genuine friendship. So you see, nothing in life happens by chance. The next year, 2017, Desiree's divorce became final. To mark the event, Desiree asked her boss if she could have a few days off to visit a good friend in New York. It was Dave's birthday. They would both have reasons to celebrate. So Desiree flew to New York. Dave picked her up at the airport. In the moment of the first meeting, they both knew almost instantly that something life-changing was about to happen. In June, Desiree visited Dave again. Their feelings were even stronger. In September, Desiree sold her house in Iredell, population now 341. They flew out, helped her pack up her belongings, filled the car to overflowing, and it was very overflowing, and cleaned the dog and headed east. It was a grueling, 1,700-mile trip. There wasn't room for a dime in that car, but after 2 days of hard driving, they arrived in Glen Cove. They settled in, their relationship deepened and grew. Fast forward 2 years. Desiree has been there to help Dave through it all. Fast forward another 2 years. On October, I had a year wrong, guys. Sorry. October 19, 2019, shortly before they were leaving to attend Eddie Van Halen, the two were at dinner. Dave, who had been acting strangely all day, suddenly announced to Desiree that he had a problem with her, and I was devastated. We were leaving for Connecticut in less than a week. Dave said, I'd like to know if you're coming with me as my girlfriend or my fiance. Then Dave pulled out the engagement ring and proposed. Through tears of joy, Desiree said yes, and well, the rest is pretty much history. Except to remind you of what Aristotle once said, nothing in life happens by chance. But I say, let's leave nothing to chance. Let's get you two married. And then then she tells like what the important of marriage is. And, it meant a lot to me because she kind of put our story together. And it's basically what it is. We had like a fairy tale. It was like a fairy tale. The chances of us meeting someone from Texas and someone from New York was just like, you didn't hear about that. And David was just the most amazing. I know I keep saying this, but I mean, just to see what he would go through every day and it wouldn't break him. It just wouldn't break him. And he would fight so hard and so strong. And the fact that you were all here sharing your stories and everybody in the chat, I'm seeing some of it. So I'm sorry, I can't answer everything, but the love that everybody has shared and what he has done to all of you is just it's a happy, overwhelming feeling.
He's touched everybody's heart.
Yes. It's just like, I've never been with a man or anybody. I've never been with anyone that could share so much with them, like so much of themselves and feel so much joy and have so much good things said about them. That's how I knew David was a good person. I never heard anyone say anything bad about him because there was nothing to say bad about him. He would give you everything. It didn't matter. He would give you everything if you asked. If you said, hey, can I have that? The answer is always yes. Sure, you could do that. Sure, you can have this. And I never felt love like I did with him. I know I'm rambling, but I just have so much to say, and I don't know how to say it, but I miss him so much. He was everything to me. So not having him, it's completely like thrown off my whole schedule. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. And it's just like, I keep hearing him tell me, babe, I love you. I'm like, I love you too, And, this year's been hard on us. We lost Brandy, we lost Snickers, and then now this. And he was just so supportive. He was just so loving. And I don't know what else to say. Sorry. He was an amazing guy. And I'm so grateful that he found me. I'm so grateful that he changed my mind about coming up here and about marriage, because I've never felt love like I felt with him. And even though we weren't married for very long, we didn't even make it a year, the 5 years that I did have with him, almost 5 years I had living up here with him, were the most amazing years of my life. And again, thank you all for sharing your stories. I wish I could have seen him gig. I think it would have been amazing to see David with the guitar in his hand and playing it the way that most of you guys have seen. And if any of you have videos of your gigs with him, please, I don't care how you need to give them to me, please give them to me. I would love to have that part of history that I was not a part of and share that. And that's all I have to say. And again, thank you all. I cannot express the love that you guys have given me. It's helped me through all of this. It's just all of the love and the support has just been very helpful. And again, thank you all.
Well said, Des. I keep thinking, we hear this common theme, like Dave was literally that guy that was always just a phone call away, right? Yeah. Day or night. And he was that for all of us. So when did the guy sleep? Like,
he didn't.
He was there for literally hundreds of us.
He never slept.
Yeah.
I'd be up visiting. It'd be like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, dude, I got to go to bed. He's like, oh, you're ready to go to bed already? I'm like, it's freaking 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm like dead. So I'd go to bed and I'd wake up at like, I don't know, 6, 7 o'clock. Dave would be up and hear his chair rolling down the.
Yes. Oh my God.
Is he up already?
This chair, yes.
Now, Desiree, I have a different experience. I used to get shit because I'd message him at like 1 or 2 in the morning. We had like a message thread,
That was my fault.
Yeah.
That was my fault. I'm like, who in the hell is texting you at 2 o'clock in the morning? Or who in the hell is texting you at 8 o'clock in the morning? Don't they know I need sleep? And so he'd be like, I'm so sorry, babe. I'll tell them. I'm like, you could tell them it's me. Because what? I'm like, tell them.
No, he never said it was you. He never blamed you. That's okay. He never blamed you.
Well, I told him it was me. It was always me, guys, because he would talk to you no matter what. But I'm like, babe, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Put your phone down. I gotta sleep. Or babe, can I not wait? No, I gotta look up this. Or he'll be looking for a guitar, and then he'll wake me up because I'll see like his phone on. I'm like, babe, can't I not wait? Oh no, I want this guitar. You see? He's like, you don't understand. I get this for a good deal if I get it right now. And then he'll be like, hey babe, can I have a guitar? Don't answer that. I'm like, yes, you can have one. Or every once in a while, I'll be like, babe, you just got one. You really need another one? Yeah, I need another one. His favorite thing to say to me was, babe, hun, I don't have that one in my toolkit or my tool. What was it? What do you say, Dennis? My
toolkit. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, our tool chest or my tool chest. I have some of these, but I need this kind of strap or I need this kind of. I'm like, babe, you have plenty. No. This one plays a little different. If you only knew, babe. Or he's like, I need to teach you more. And I'm like, it looks the same. For instance, the two, like the guitar that I bought him. The green, I don't know if you guys can see these two. The green one, and the Kramers, right? Aren't those Kramers? And then the one right next to it. I'm like, babe, they're the same color. Oh no, the headstock's different. I'm like, everything else is the same. Oh no, you need to pick it up. The neck is just a little bit different, babe. I'm like, then he got the red one. I'm like, babe. Oh no. He's like, here. Here, hold it. And I remember I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you guys again. The first time he had me hold a guitar, he's like, let me teach you how to play. And so I started playing. I'm like, oh. And he's like, okay, now touch this guitar. I'm like, oh, these necks are different. I'm like, ooh, I really like this one. And he's like, babe, you know what we should do? We need to go buy you a guitar. And I'm like, what? I'm I'm like, no, you can't see the one that he gave me. But I'm like, no, I like this. He's like, no, you need to experience something else, something a little bit higher up. And I'm like, I think I'm fine. He's like, no. He's like, oh, keep playing, because then we'll go buy you a new guitar. I'm like, you mean David will go buy him a new guitar?
Dave Smooth,
babe. So
I'm just thinking over the last, and Ty, you can attest to this. Dave had this thing, especially over the last couple of years. He'd lock onto a new body style every 3 months, but he had to have it both with a maple fretboard and a rosewood fretboard.
That's right.
Yeah,
he was right.
Those are and technically, Ben, those are different guitars.
Yeah.
Now you sound like David. He's like, they're not the same.
Like, yeah, but now I got it in rosewood. You're like, of course you do, Dave. Of course you do.
Yeah.
Well, Desiree, knowing Dave as many years as I have, and some of us here go back decades with him, I have to say that your relationship was the happiest I knew him.
Thank you.
So you I think what all the things he said about him, I think they were just two sides of the same coin. So it goes the same can be said for you.
Oh, thank you. I loved him. I thought I knew what love was before. I'll be honest, with my ex-husband, I thought I knew what love was before. But when I met David, I knew then what love was. It didn't matter. Like, I'll be a little bit more personal. Like my ex-husband, when he wanted a guitar, my answer was always no. Why you don't need another one? But with Dave, he was like, it was totally different. Dave's like, okay, baby, can I get it? I want another guitar. Or if I'm like, he's like, I could trade this one for this one. I'm like, okay. I'm like, I can't argue with that. I'm like, okay. But he just made me, I wanted to do more for him. I wanted to give him everything. It was like, if he says, I want, I felt like, okay, here you go. I want, okay, here you go. I want, okay. He just made me where I wanted to do everything for him. And I got one more story. So on this, sorry, I'm like taking over the chat here. I'm taking over the show here. So on the green card that I bought him, I'm going to tell the story. He'll probably kill me about telling the story, but I'm going to tell it anyways. So it's like the first Christmas we had together, and he was on me about getting a guitar for him. So he wanted that green one, that one. And I saw it's like, I'm backwards. That one, yeah. And so I'm like, babe, I'm like, that's expensive. He's like, oh no, it's not expensive. Most of mine are more expensive than that. I'm like, what? And this is before I knew anything about guitars, And he's like, please, babe, please, I really want this guitar. Can you get it to me for Christmas, please, please, please? And so I talked to his mom, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna get him that guitar. And she's like, what? I'm like, I'm gonna get it for him. So Dave, he watches stuff on Reverb like a freaking vulture, so he keeps looking at and he sees that it's disappeared. So he comes into the living room, or we're in the kitchen one day, and he comes in. You remember this story? So he comes in all cocky, and he goes, oh, I see that guitar is not on Reverb anymore that I wanted. And I go, well, I go, what? I'm like, what do you mean it's not on there? And he goes, yeah. He goes, I'm wondering why it's not on there. I said, I don't know why it's not on there. I don't know why you're acting all cocky. I don't know. And so like every few days, he would just, so can I go and have the guitar now? Can I go and have the guitar now? I'm like, babe, I did not get you the guitar. So one day, like right before Christmas, he's kept going on and on. I go, David, I did not get you the damn guitar. Just stop. It's because I knew if I acted mad, he would let go. I'm like, I'll go quit. I go, excuse my language. I said, quit fucking asking me about that guitar. I did not get it for you. I don't want to hear anything else about it. If you mention it to me again, I'll never, ever, ever will even think about getting a guitar. Just shut up and quit asking me. And so he's like, oh, okay. He goes, but I saw a box across the street being delivered to my mom's house, like a guitar box. I said, I don't know what the hell you saw.
You can smell them.
Yeah. What the hell you saw? And I'm trying to be pissed off, but then the part of me felt bad because I'm yelling at him. But
now it's going back.
So yeah, and I was like, I knew if I didn't yell, he would buy it. So I'm like, I did not fucking buy it for you. Just shut up already about it. Just shut up about it. So then Christmas comes. So we have the box that the guitar comes in, right? So we fill it with all kinds of. We left the peanuts in it. And his mom bought a Christmas ornament of a small guitar.
Right. the box. If you would have
Awesome.
stayed.
So we put the guitar in there. So Tom goes, "Oh, there's something outside for you, Dave." So he brings it in, and I act like it's the heaviest thing in there. So I'm scooting it across the floor, like real slow. And I'm like, "Oh my God, this box is heavy." So of course, here comes the cocky smile. And he's like, "I wonder what this is." And I'm like, I don't know. So he opens it. And so he's digging and he finds this little guitar. He is pissed off.
Oh,
He is very pissed. He's like,
it was timeless.
and I've never seen David mad. He doesn't get mad. So like he's like, and he goes,
That's some joke. Remember, he was like, "Oh my God, I don't think this is very funny."
Yeah,
know?
he was
like a child that was just that you took his candy away from him, and he was just like, "Christmas is over," or whatever. And then
Go to my room.
Get out, everybody
and
out.
calm down, and he
Christmas is
was like,
canceled.
"Oh, thank you very much."
Yeah.
And
He goes, "Thanks very much for the guitar ornament. I guess I'll put it on the tree." And so then Tom goes, "But wait, I think there's something else out here." So then we bring in the guitar case. And so then he's kind of leery because he's like, they're going to be assholes to me again.
we're gonna play the
right?
game with him again.
So he opens it and this part, he's going to kill me for ever saying this. Then he starts crying. He's like, "Oh my God, you really did get it for me." And I'm like, "Yes, I did." I said, "I'm sorry I yelled at you that day, but you were about to ruin it." And I was like, "Shut up already." But it was the most funniest thing because he was so mad when he thought he won the fight, and he's like, "Yeah." And then he saw his little freaking ornament. He was so mad. And then when he saw the real guitar, he's like, "I knew you bought it." I'm like, "No, you didn't, because right now you thought I did not buy it for you."
Right.
He was so mad. And then he's like, then when he started crying, he's like, "You're the best ever. Thank you."
Great.
That's awesome.
It's funny. You say that when he thinks he's getting a guitar, or if he wants a guitar and it doesn't happen. Remember, I don't know if you remember a couple years ago, he was talking to somebody about getting a Ibanez Gem 7V. It's like the black one with the green pickups and the green pine inlays, right? And then he was all pumped. And then the deal fell through or something happened and the guy wasn't selling it or something happened. And for 2 days, Dave was like a 12-year-old.
Oh, yeah.
I talked to him on the phone. He's pissed. I'm like, "Dude, something will come, Yeah, I know. But he's just, I was like, "Man, Dave, cool out. It's going to be fine, And he just didn't want to hear it. And then, of course, like 48 hours later, he ends up getting a deal for another one. And
Which is the best guitar ever.
Yeah, instantly, like, Dave's back. It's like, man.
I remember that day because I'm like, "Oh my God, baby, it's just a guitar." He's like, "You don't understand. It's not just a guitar."
He was like,
and I'm like, "Quit being so angry about it. There's more things to be angry about." And he's like, "I wanted that guitar. I want that guitar." I'm like, "Babe."
Oh, I was up visiting one weekend, and Desiree, you were there. You remember this? I forget what guitar it was, and he had a guitar, and he was trying to fix it, and something happened to it. I can't recall. I don't remember what it was. It was like a Friday night, and he could not. It wasn't there was something wrong with it, and there was a crack or something. I don't remember what it was. He went like you said. He was like a 12-year-old, and he was just totally pissed. Like, no matter what I said to him, I couldn't make him laugh. He was like so pissed, and it carried over into the next day. And finally, around like lunchtime the next day, he's like, "All right, I'm sorry, I've been like this, whatever." It's like, "Dave, it's cool, no big deal, whatever." And then he finally came out of it. But oh yeah, he would like, if a guitar couldn't be fixed or there's something wrong with it or he couldn't get it, he was like he was pissed. It was like, yeah, he took that very seriously.
Yep.
And I remember Desiree was like, "Your friend's here visiting for the weekend. What does the matter with you?"
I said, "Your friend's here. Quit acting like this. You're acting like a child. Stop it."
It's cool. Don't worry about it. It's no big deal.
And Rob's like, "It's okay. It's okay." I'm like, "It's not okay. Quit acting like a child."
He would save himself from himself. So he would get guitars and just rip the necks off and send them to Larry and say, "Just refret these."
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Right, Dennis? You just.
Oh yeah.
And I will say towards the end too, we know like Dave had good days and bad days, but my God, to quote him, my God, you just show him a guitar. Like the amount of time I jump on to one of these calls before a show and he's like, you're going to have to carry the show tonight. I'm not feeling up to it. I'm feeling like crap. Blah, 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 blah. We start the show. We get about halfway through and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, right, Dave's supposed to be sick.
Mm-hmm.
Like you wouldn't know it. And then we get off air, and then he's fine for about 10 minutes. It's like coming off stage. He's got that adrenaline rush. And then after about 10 minutes, all of a sudden he's like, oh, I got to go lay down. And I was like, yeah, buddy. Like, you were just going a million miles an hour for 2 hours. But it was like as soon as, that music would play, Dave would just turn it on. And, like, I can only imagine what he was like on stage because he poured everything into it.
He did the, he had the, Larry, maybe he got it from you, man. He had the, he'd have the cowboy hat.
Oh, yeah.
The cowboy hat. He was big with the turquoise, and, the adornments and whatnot. And we had, when we did a gig, did gigs together, he sat in with my band or whatever. We'd add, just add another guitar, come on down, and he would deck himself out. It was, It was great, and he had.
It's funny you mentioned that, Dennis. I was talking with my sister because all you folks have been sharing so many amazing photos, and I was just like, I said to my sister, I was like, so when Dave was rocking that Santa Fe look, right? And she's like, that was interesting. I'm like, he owned that though. Like some guys might just wear the hat or just some turquoise, and I was like, no, he owned it. Like, and I was like, that's awesome. Like that's Nesdale.
Yeah, that's he definitely owned it for sure.
He would tell me that that you got him doing that, Larry. He's like, I want to like Larry Mitchell, but he goes, but I'm white. I'm the white Larry Mitchell. I would see pictures of him, and I'm like, you wore turquoise. I'm like, that you wore the hat, and you had turquoise too. He's like, yeah. He's like, I want to be like Larry Mitchell.
Well, I've told this story a million times, but I'll say it again. Another thing about Dave is that most people that have watched any of the shows I've been on or whatever I pretty much started playing guitar because of Larry Mitchell, and when I found out that Dave and Larry were friends, I was like, what? I couldn't believe it, and then I remember the phone call or text I got from Dave. And, before a show on a Friday night or whatever it was, he's like, hey, Larry's coming on with us tonight, and I was like, shitting my pants, and it's just cool that, obviously Dave, meeting Dave and becoming friends with Dave, I ended up becoming friends with Larry as well, which is, a cool thing, somebody who basically, had you, his music made you start wanting to play guitar and, having your parents get you a guitar, and it's cool. So I have Dave to thank for that,
That's awesome.
I remember the first time Dave said that Larry's coming to our house, and he's like, he told me about you, and he's like, he's a Grammy, he has a Grammy, it's all his other stuff, and I'm like, what do you mean he's coming to our house? I'm like, what? Because a lot of times Dave would tell me he knows someone, even like at the very beginning, he's like, oh yeah, I know so-and-so. I'm like, no, you don't. So he'll just grab his phone, makes the phone call. He's like, hey, blah, 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 blah. How are you? And he put on speaker like, hey, Dave, how are you? And I'm like, you know that person? I'm like, oh my God. Or you will go somewhere and it'd be like, like with you, Larry. And he's like, yeah, Larry's going to stay at our house. I'm like, sure he is. Like, no, we're really good friends. I'm like, uh-huh. And then you show up at the house and I'm like, oh my God. And so finally I said, you know what, babe, I'll never doubt you again. If you say you know someone, you don't have to pick up the phone anymore. Or, or I'll see his phone go off and I see people calling like certain people. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, who do you not know? Or if he didn't know them, somehow he would talk them into giving him his cell phone number and then they'd be friends. I'm like, how'd you get that person's number? I asked. You did what? What do you mean you asked? He's like, what's the worst they could do? Say no. And I'm like, yes. I'm like, you're ballsy. I'm like, you got some balls, dude.
And you talk to everybody like all of us here. Like, he'd say, oh, I'm talking to such and such today. And you're like, oh, yeah, And he's like, yeah, his arm's bothering him or like, because it was life stuff. And it wasn't even, like music related or whatever. And it's just like, yeah, that's Dave. Like, and it's like he seems to have known everybody for 20 years. And it's just
It's such an easy way of going about it, about himself, that people felt comfortable after about 2 minutes talking with him.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, for sure.
He was very respectful too. He wasn't overbearing. He was never overbearing.
Well,
I was very fortunate to get to interview a lot of people with Dave, and the thing that was consistent about Dave is that he never asked me for anything, right? So it was immediately disarming. One of the funniest things that ever happened was he gave me a call and he said, "Hey, we got Johnny Highland on Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday, or whatever day we were doing it." Yeah. He was like, "Well, say hello to Johnny. He's on the line." I mean, it was just
good thing you didn't say anything crazy.
Yeah, and it's that was Dave. He would make those connections and
instant friendships.
I can imagine. I didn't know Dave as a salesman when he was on 48, but I can imagine that he was a really good one because he could establish a sense of trust so quickly. Because he wasn't he wasn't imposing. I mean, he was one of us and he spoke our language, and it was
he sold me I mean, he and I were already good friends by the time. I mean, it was 2005 and I had wanted a Gibson Hummingbird. He was working at Guitar Center around Comac out on the island, and he and I said, "Dave, man, I want to get a Hummingbird." And he's like, "All right, I'll order it." So he ordered it for me. And when it came in, I had a 1968 Martin 0018 that I bought myself when I graduated college. And I wish I still had that guitar. But anyway, I was like, I'm done with this. I want the Keith Richards guitar. I want that. That's And Dave's like, "I can do that, man." So he got it in and he said, "Dennis, just want to let you know, all I did was open the case to make sure everything wasn't broken." He goes, "I haven't touched it. I didn't play it at all. But we were buddies, So he was a really good salesman. I would watch him talk to other people at Guitar Center, and he was very personable, and he wasn't a BS guy at all.
No.
He wouldn't try to sell you on something. He would just sort of feel you out and almost let you sell yourself through him, which it's a talent. You have to have that. You have to be that kind of a people person, and he was that. And because he was knowledgeable too, he wasn't, he knew what he was
very
talking about, which is rare, particularly today.
Hell yeah, that's rare. Nowadays, you go into Guitar Center and you're like,
But he treated everybody the same. I mean, I remember once on 48th Street, I was in the store because, like I said, I used to go there on my lunch hour almost every day. And Bo Diddley walked in, and this is back, I guess, in the late 90s. And Dave was like, it didn't matter if you were a famous guitar player or somebody off the street. He treated everybody with respect, and he listened to what it was that you were into, and he wouldn't BS you. He was, he would guide you based on what you told him, and that's what made him so good.
Yeah, for sure.
Remember, Dave was the guy that told Ingwe, "Hang on, I'm on the phone."
Yeah, that's great.
Oh, sorry.
That's one of my favorite stories.
Yeah. That's he. So many facets. Like, I'm just thinking, like he knew what you would like and what you should play, and that's for all of us. And we all come from varied backgrounds in playing, and who covers all that?
Right.
He was the guitar guru.
Yeah.
And he knew what everybody, after talking to you for a short amount of time, he kind of knew what guitars you liked and how you liked to play them and stuff like that. It was very strange.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. He was just sensitive, in that way, for sure. And to play live with him was fun. I mean, he really was a good player. He was a sensitive musician. He had great ears, all those things like you look at as I mean, as a teacher, you look at somebody who's starting to pick up the guitar, and you go, all right, this one's out to lunch, or this one has got something going on. This one is actually listening, and Dave. I mean, Dave just had that, and he had a great touch. He had a great touch on the instrument, and that's how we got. We had a mutual respect for one another, and that's how we became friends. It was as with all of us, it was such a big part of it. I mean, but we just, by the time that, like I said, when he sold me that hummingbird, I mean, he and I were buddies, and we would just talk shop all the time. And I don't know when I met you, Larry, but I mean, to meet you through him, and to get to talk shop with you, to get your perspective on stuff based on your experience, was great. And I have Dave to thank for that as well.
Yeah, it's great. I remember he was telling me about your playing, and then I finally got to see you play. I was like, oh, okay, it's great. It's great.
You still have that? There's still a YouTube video out there of you with that guy Paul Oblong. You saw that guy. He was a guitar player. He was the drummer for Paul Simon, and you happened to see him play guitar in a club in Nashville. Like it was like 3 people in there, and I think about that. I think about the stuff that that you would say, our conversations, and I have Dave to thank for that, as well as your nylon string.
I love it.
I remember we were sitting on the phone one day, and we were talking, and I had a guitar in my lap, and I'm just fooling around, and Dave said, "Wait a minute, what are you playing?" And I was like, "Well, I'm not really playing anything, but I've been working on this Travis picking a lot." And he was like, "You got to see my friend Dennis do this," and he shot me this video over of you doing this, and I was like, "Holy smoke!" This guy, and I was like, "Dave, can you Travis pick?" And he goes, "I wouldn't dare even try, sit here with Dennis, to try to do this." I said, "I don't think I'm going to try like that anymore either."
No. There was a time when he wanted to do it. Like he was like, "Dennis, can we get together? Like I want you to, give me, teach me some stuff, like show me some things." I was like, "Yeah, sure, man." It never materialized. Whatever, just things get in the way or whatnot. But yeah, he was always very supportive. He was always very, Dan, you should do this, you should do that, you should try. Like when the pandemic had started, he's like, you should do one of these shows. You could. And I was like, I don't know. Like everybody's doing it already.
Yeah.
You guys don't watch you guys.
Yeah, tell me about it as a YouTuber when the pandemic hit and then all the pros started doing their own stuff. I'm like, oh no, why would anybody watch me now?
Oh, it's cool though, man. It's all cool.
That's the thing. Dave always, had you pursue you be you. I remember it's like, him telling me, when I started doing videos and stuff, and you get a little bit of hate in the comments, whatever, and he's fuck that guy, fuck him, you're making videos and they aren't, and he'd just go off on this rant, and I'm like, wow, Dave, you're pretty laid back. But when also it's like when anyone messed with one of his friends, you would hear a Dave rant like no other.
Yeah, he was very protective of the people he cared about. He really was. That was definitely something special about Dave. Absolutely was. He was not. Dave is not two-faced at all.
Nope.
Not at all. If you said something to Dave and he didn't agree with you, he would be respectful about it, but he would say, "Well, I don't really think that. I think this or whatever." And it was that was a special quality because there's so many people that don't do that.
Yeah, he'd let you know. He'd let you know what you needed to hear sometimes.
Yep.
For sure.
Friends do.
But he was nice about it. And he would get on to me. He's like, "Babe," he's like, "you get so mad so quickly about certain things." But I'm like, no one should say this and no one should act like this. And he's like, "Babe, it's really not that big of a deal." And I'm like, "Yes, it is." And he's like, "Babe, it's not."
Texas, New York. Texas, New York.
He became a in the beginning, with buying guitars, we were so, hey, you know what? I'm thinking about getting it. Get it. Yeah. We would fuel one another's spending, And then later on, it got to the point where he would call me or I would call him and I'd say, "Dave, I'm looking at this." So you're like, "What do you think?" And he'd go, "Den, do you really need that? Like, and I was like, no, I don't. I know that, but I can't help myself right now, you know. And he would definitely, he definitely reined me in, and I would do that for him too. I mean, he called me. I mean, it would be, you know, within the past year and within the past 6 months.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you.
I'm thinking about this. What do you think? And I was like, no.
Thanks.
Just don't. And he'd be like, and you know, it was the past few years where we would actually listen to one another. Because before that, we'd be like, yeah, whatever. You know? we started. It took us a while, like, you know, so we're like, yeah, you know what? You're right. Thanks. I'm glad.
Yeah.
You know, I'm glad I called you. That's, you know, I mean, I'll miss that. Like I said at the beginning with the pedals, you know, it's like to call my buddy and be like, Dave, check this out, man. I'm going to come over. I'm going to bring this thing. We're going to play loud, piss off the lady upstairs. Your mom's going to call. I know she's going to call. You're not going to play loud, are you? No, we're not. It's going to be fine. And then you knew that as soon as you walked out the door, halfway across the driveway, you hear the guitar blaring out the window, out the door. You knew it. And you knew it. And you just had to say what you had to say. And then and that was cool. We had the understanding, you know.
We're just testing a pedal. Okay, they won't be long.
10 minutes. Well, whatever, you know.
Well, everybody, I actually have to bounce. I got to be up early in the morning, but I just wanted to say thank you to, you know, first off, I just want to say, Desiree, I mentioned this to you the other day, and I'll say it again. You were able to give David an incredible gift that only one person on this planet could give him, and that was the gift of being his amazing wife. And that is something that made him feel more special than words can even say. And I know that for a fact because he's told me that many times. And he told me that very recently, how lucky he was to have you. And that's something that you should feel very special about. You guys have an incredible story, and you had an opportunity to spend some incredible time with a wonderful human being. And I guess I would say, you know, you can say that don't be glad it's over, be glad it happened, but always remember David will always be with you. And I would always like to think that he will always also be with all of us also. But you gave him an incredible gift. And that's something that I know he really, really cherished. And I believe you'll see him again.
Amen.
Amen.
Well said, Rob.
Thank you.
I'd like to
I
say,
am noticing it is getting close to 11, so I'm thinking with all of us here, let's all do one more round. And thank you, Rob, so much. And I understand if you drop out during this. I think if we all tell one more Dave story or so, you know, or parting words, if you want to say what have you,
Rob,
we'll cap this off the right way.
How the hell is anybody going to top that?
I don't know. I don't know.
That was like grace. I mean,
Oh my God, that was such a Dave comment, Jay. That was such a Dave comment. Oh my God. But he was
I'm just thinking there's 10 of us, and you know, I figure Des is going to have to go last, you know, because she's the headliner here tonight, you know, helping us pay tribute to Dave. You know,
I want to say one thing before everybody leaves. So the one thing I thought of, and I'm not usually, I don't like being on these things, but as soon as I talked to Ben and I told him about David, and I said, I want to know what you think about this. I said, I know you guys usually have a show on Thursday. And I said, I want to have a tribute to David. I said, I want to be on there. I don't know if I can, because I was going to originally do it on David's show. But then I'm like, there's no way I could have got all of us on here. I would have been knocking people off all the time. But then Ben said, you know what? Let's do it on mine, because that way you don't have to worry about putting anybody in. You don't worry about taking anybody off. So I want to say thank you, Ben, for getting everybody together. I know I reached out to several of you and said, hey, can you do this for me? Can you do this for me? But having all of you here has meant so much. And I thank you, Ben, for doing this. Thank you for helping me, because I know, like, is it okay for so-and-so? No, who else would you like? And I couldn't think of everybody, and you helped me. and you put this together and you made such a beautiful show. And thanks for letting me be part of it. I mean, I know you let me be part of it, but it was it was very nice. And I hope I made David proud because I wanted to do something nice. You know, I know he's not Eddie Van Halen. I mean, I know, but to me, he's my Eddie Van Halen. He was my, when I think of all of the love that people gave Eddie Van Halen, they saw him, you know, to me, David was my rock star. He was my everything. So I'm like, you know what? I want to show him love. And I want to hear about his playing. You know, I didn't get that option. I'm like, the best way to do that is bring all his friends together so we can share and have a wonderful story and have so much love shared between us. So thank you all for taking time out of your night. And thank you, Ben, for doing this. And I just want to say thank you, everyone, for doing this for me.
And
And
I
for
want
Dave.
to thank y'all again too. This has been so nice because I haven't known him but maybe a couple of years, but I've learned a whole lot about that rascal tonight.
Yeah, that's right.
And
The
thank
voice
you.
of the Texan from off screen.
I was looking around. I was like, "Who's
Wait, where's Earl? Yeah,
Love that. Love that voice. Love it.
So, Pete, you want to follow that?
How can I follow that? Listen, I'll do my best, though. I mean,
I had to top Rob, guys. Sorry.
Oh, you just topped me. You just topped me.
listen, I'm
But I
gonna
want to,
greatly
before you go,
appreciate-
Pete, I do have to bounce. So good night, everyone.
Good night.
I'll see a lot of you folks on Saturday at the
Absolutely.
service.
See you Saturday.
And I just want to say I love all you guys, and let's keep this stuff going. Let's keep these shows going, and let's keep the love going. Certainly for Dave, but also because Dave would want us to, because it's a passion of ours.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yes.
And I'm going to miss my best friend, David Nesdall. I love you, bro, and I'll see you soon.
Bye, Rob.
Good night, everyone.
Love you.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna miss him greatly.
Yeah.
It's so hard. It's hard to believe this is real. I mean, I don't even know if it really is truly set in yet, you know. But what I will say is there was a lot of smiles in here tonight, and a lot of stories, a lot of laughing, and I think that's what he would want to see here. It's making me feel good, celebrating him. You know,
Yeah.
you know, it's like the angel and devil. Like like you could, start shedding tears any second. But I just knowing him these years, he would not want that. You know, if I had to talk like that, what are you doing that for? Enjoy it. You know, why are you gonna do that? Why?
Yeah, why?
You know, it's just I hear him in my head, you know, and I don't think I'll ever not hear him. And to Rob's point, Desiree, he, I'm not speaking for everyone in the room, but there was a certain light on him after he met you, and he, there was a little angel dust in his step, and you gave him something really special, and I'm glad he had you for this, you know, and I'm gonna miss him, and
Well said.
we miss him. I'm telling you, he's a great man.
I hear you.
You did good, Ben. You raised a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
I have to say that at this point, God needed an angel, and he got our angel.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody loved him. We will always love him. He's my baby, my everything. And I know at this point that he doesn't have any pain anymore. So this secures my heart, and I will always carry him in my heart. But I know he's at peace and loving you all. And he is here with us, and he always will be. But he is that angel in heaven now.
Yeah.
And I thank you all
Sure.
for everything.
That was beautiful.
It was.
I'll see, hopefully, some most of you on Saturday. I got to jump off too.
All right, see you Saturday.
Love you, man.
Nice seeing all you guys, everybody.
Take care.
Bye, Pete.
Take care.
And yes, we do have my sister bookending the show tonight. She's like, yeah, that's okay. You know, I'll ease out. Vince, care to share anything else tonight?
Yeah. You know, hearing all the different stories about David, you know, I didn't get to know him as well as everybody, but a lot of the times that we did have together, he was always like surprising. So just an example, Larry and I did something at the school where I taught, and I don't know what happened with the bass player, but I had my drummer there, and Larry, myself, the bass player, and the drummer were going to do a end of clinic jam. The guy didn't show up. Figures, you know, bass players. What can you do? And Dave was like, I can do it. And he just got up, and we started jamming, and it was like we played together for forever. It was like just right in the groove. He didn't overdo it. And it's on my YouTube channel, I'm pretty sure, buried. It's because it's probably 14 years ago at this point that happened. But yeah, you know, just again, every time I got to hang with Dave, he was just a cool dude, very respectable, and it always involved gigs and food and guitars. I mean, that was where it was, you know, in that order. Now he's teching for Eddie and Prince and Stevie Ray and all of those guys. So I'm glad I
Telling
was
Stevie Ray his action's too high.
That's right. And you go to White String. But thank you for having me aboard for this. I appreciate it. And Desiree, you're awesome.
Thank you.
And yeah, I saw that little spark that everybody's talking about in 2019 when you guys came to that event. Yeah, he was just all smiles all the time there. So
Thank you. And thank you again for walking me out to my car that day.
oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You know, I know
And
Dave.
thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Nice to meet everybody that I haven't met over the years. And it's funny because I feel like I know some of you from watching some of the streams, you know. Yeah. Thanks again. And Dave was awesome, you know, and I'll just I'm grateful to have gotten to meet with him and hang with him. And again, when I had questions for him, he would answer them, and you know, just a all around nice guy. So I just wish we got to play. He invited me up probably as recent as like 2 months ago. He's like, you got to come up to the house, man. And it's just like, there's so much going on in my life right now where I can't really get away. Larry knows what's up. I'm not going to get into it, but yeah, it's hard. So I'm regretting I never got to do it. So, but
I hear you.
You know.
Thank you, Vince.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. I'm going to go because I do have some things I have to take care of. But again, it was great to meet and hear everybody's stories, and I'm glad I was able to get on here and hang out with everybody.
Well, thanks for doing it, Vince.
Take care.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Vince.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Vince.
Good night.
Ty, care to share some words? You and I, man, we talked for an hour about Dave. We had a Dave chat today, didn't we?
Yeah.
You know, it was going to be 15 minutes, and it was an hour, and I loved every minute of it. It was the Dave chat.
Yeah, I'm going to miss Dave. You know, I just appreciate him. I mean, look at the quality people he surrounded himself with. Each of you. I mean, what a testament, you know, to who he was as a man. And, you know, I've heard so many stories about all of you, about Rob and Pete and Larry. I feel like I know you backward and forward. I've heard so many Larry Mitchell stories. I mean, you were his guy. And, you know, it's Dave had this unique gift of bringing all of us into his world and introducing all of us. I mean, Dennis and Jay and Anthony, Ben. It's a real blessing. And John Conklin said something to me that was very profound, that has really stuck with me, about just how big of a giant Nesdale really was in our little corner of the world, of our little corner of the internet. He was a giant, and it leaves a great void without having him here. I will miss him. I will miss the way he enriched my life. But I will always remember him fondly, just because you can't help it. And Desiree, for you, we're here to love and support you through this. And you were everything to him. He talked about you constantly. I hope he told you daily everything that he told us daily about you. So.
He told me that he said that he never loved anybody the way he loved me, and that he appreciates everything I've done for him and all of the things I constantly do. And he did. And thank you for the kind words. It's just, I will definitely be reaching out to all of you, I'm sure, because this is hard. I never thought I would be losing him. You know, I'm so sorry. I keep making it so sad, but we had so many plans. You know, when he got a kidney, we were going to go and move. We were going to start our lives. We were just going to do so much. And it was just a shock. You know, I knew he didn't feel good, but he always bounced back. Dave always bounced back. If he didn't feel good, okay, give him a couple weeks. You know, he'll bounce back. And I kept telling him, babe, it's okay. It's okay. You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. It's okay. And I never thought that, you know, Sunday when we went to bed, that would be it. I never thought that, because I thought he would bounce back from this, but he just didn't. I think he's just tired. And I think that he fought a very long fight, you know, because, I mean, he didn't want anybody to know. He didn't want anybody to know the things he was going through. That wasn't Dave. He wanted everybody to be happy and to know that, hey, you know what? He wanted everybody to share his happiness with him. And like Ben said, there'd be days that he wouldn't feel good on the show. And I'm telling him, go ahead and do your show. Because I knew as soon as he started talking about guitars, he would love it. So I'm like, get on there. And then you would see, as soon as the show came on, you would see that upbeat David. You would see the loving, you know, you would see the excitement in his eyes. And then, you know, sometimes after show, he still had it because he was like, okay. And I'm like, babe, keep it up. You got this. You got this. And that's all I kept telling him. You got this. This is nothing. You got this. So I'm like, all of you. I mean, I am shocked too. You know, I know some people I don't know. I don't think anybody realized how shocked I am. I was totally like, what the hell just happened? You know, I was just with you. You know, we were just talking. We were playing cards. We were playing Skippo. You know, you were laughing. I'll tell a quick funny story. So he's sitting in this chair and I don't know, we're talking about something. He goes, I'm getting exercise. I'm getting exercise. Look at me. Look at me. And it was just laughing about it. And he's like, hi, honey. I love you. I love you. I love you. And I'm like, are you okay? And that was Sunday. I mean, and he's like, you know, I'm feeling good. Look at me. We're going to play cards. And I'm like, and I said, we can play cards. I'm going to kick your ass again. And, you know, and anybody who knows Dave, he played twice with me. And he's like, yeah, I don't want you to beat me again. But it was just funny because he had so much energy and he was so happy that I was like, whoa, you know. But again, I'm just rambling again. So thank you guys so much. Thank you, Ty, for the kind words. Thank you.
Awesome. Larry, care to share?
I feel like I know at least 4 versions of Dave. Because stages of Dave. And we spent, in the early 90s, we spent so much time together. And we found ourselves in some really bizarre situations I can't even go into. But Dave and I didn't drink or do drugs. And but we found ourselves amongst craziness quite often. And then there was another stage of just when he was selling guitars, and then we went to stages when he was teching for me again. And every time we'd do a gig in the city, his car would get broken into, and he'd be pissed for a minute, and then he'd be okay. And then when I moved to San Diego, he actually gave me this ring. And then later I moved to New Mexico, where this ring is from, the Zenny ring. And it actually was a big thing because I did a lot of stuff in the Native American world and found out about the ring. And I called Dave and told him about it. And I still wear this ring because he gave it to me. I've been wearing it for the last 20-something years, almost 30 years. Watching the person that he became is absolutely amazing. And he was great to start with, but watching who he became, and Desiree, in the last few years that you were with him, is watching him really be the best Dave. And watching him be the best Dave he could be from the inside while his body was failing him from the outside was amazing. Some ways heartbreaking, but it was amazing. I am still upset that I didn't come. He asked me to come for his birthday, and maybe we'd do my Tuesday Night Live on his birthday from the house. And I wanted to do it, and I was trying to book other shows and make it work. So I said I'll come out in July because I have to be out there in July. I really wish I had come to that because the last time I saw him was the wedding in person, I believe. And but I'm really happy that I got to speak with him on Sunday. Yeah. And just totally did not expect to wake up Sunday morning to a bunch of texts and then to see your text. And as soon as I saw your text, I knew something bad happened. But I really got to hear his voice, and he said he was tired, and he was apologizing because he couldn't moderate my show. I'm like, you don't have to moderate the show, just rest. And I'm glad we got to talk.
I'm glad you got to talk to. He really, I mean, he cared about everybody, but he really did love you. And he thought of you as a brother. And the things that you did for us at the wedding were amazing. And he really appreciated everything. And you were there. You watched after him. I remember at one point, I'm like, Larry, I got it. You go, I got him. You didn't say it like that, but you're like, I'll watch after him. I'm like, it was just, thank you.
And he always, Larry Mitchell this, Larry Mitchell that. And he thought a lot of you, Larry.
Yeah,
I think a lot of Dave too. We went through so much together. This is not fun. This is so much. Yeah.
Me too.
That's it. I'm gonna miss him big time.
Well, Jay, I know you've always wanted to follow Larry Mitchell. I'm just going to throw it to you, brother, man.
I'm never good with words, especially in these types of situations. Ask my wife. I've been with her for 24 years, and I still don't know what to say or when to say it or any of that stuff. But again, I'm happy that I did get to, know Dave. We had a fun time on the show while it lasted. And I kind of blame him, ever since I started playing guitar, I've always been, one guitar is fine. You have a backup. I don't need 3, 4, 5 guitars.
Sure you do.
Once I start doing the shows with them, next thing you know, I'm like, hey, what about this guitar? What about that guitar? And here we are. I'm still looking for more guitars. you know, and again, I'll say, you know, another way he kind of impacted, you know, my life is that he kind of, you know, doing that show and stuff like that and talking guitars and gear and music and stuff. It really ignited the flame for guitar playing for me again, because for a while I really, you know, wasn't playing much anymore. And it really just got me back into playing like full blown again. And, you know, it's just, you know, I think, you know, again, I'm terrible with this type of stuff. Man, especially everybody that went before me was so beautiful. And now I'm like a rambling, bumbling idiot.
Dude, I still got to follow you. I still got to follow everybody. So
I'll make it easy. Who's ever going to follow me is
yeah, sure. I'll host it. Sure. With the sign off. Yeah.
But I will say this. I mean, you know, having a wife and two children, two young children, it's amazing. You know, you never think something can happen as fast as it does. And I forget who said it before, but just, you know, your loved ones and stuff like that, always tell them that you love them. And it's just, you never know. Sorry.
So
I miss Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
Excuse me. Dennis, my friend.
Well, I would, you know, today is the 5th anniversary of my mom passing away. And I remember when she passed away, I just happened upon this short passage about, you know, I mean, it sounds so somber, about death, you know, and I thought, you know, it's something that Desiree, I was going to talk to you about tomorrow that I wanted to be able to read on Saturday. But I wanted to read it here. You know, you guys all said so many beautiful things. I just thought, I looked at this and I was thinking about it, and it really struck me because I talked to my sister. I told her, and my sister is very much of this mind, and I think in many ways I am too. So I'd like to read it to you guys, if and whoever is still on there listening, just to put it out there onto the interwebs forever, you know. Death is nothing at all. It does not count. I have only slipped away into the next room. Nothing has happened. Everything remains exactly as it was. I am I, and you are you, and the old life that we lived so fondly together is untouched, unchanged. Whatever we are to each other, that we are still. Call me by the old familiar name. Speak of me in the easy way which you always used. Put no difference in your tone. Wear no forced air of solemnity or sorrow. Laugh as we always laughed at the little jokes that we enjoyed together. Play, smile, think of me, pray for me. Let my name be forever the household word that it always was. Let it be spoken without an effort, without the ghost of a shadow upon it. Life means all that it ever meant. It is the same as it ever was. There is absolute and unbroken continuity. What is death but a negligible accident? Why should I be out of mind because I am out of sight? I am but waiting for you for an interval somewhere very near, just around the corner. All is well. And, you know, like, I was thinking about that because I couldn't call him today with the pedal. And I'm like, I can just talk to him. Just like I always did.
Yep.
You know, it's the same way I think about my mom every day for 5 years. There's not a day that goes by that I do not think about her multiple times. And it'll be the same for Dave. So when I get new gear, I mean, I'll probably ask him, you know, dude, what should I do? I'm thinking about this guitar, you know, and I'll just wait. Then I probably already know the answer, you know, but I'll wait, you know, I'll wait because he is there. He's here. He's here in this thing. And he's looking at all us like, man, thank you guys. But I'm right here, you know.
Yep.
You know, so
that was beautiful.
Yeah. So that's what I wanted to put out there.
And you can on Saturday, yes. So I think what I'm kind of interrupting here. We're gonna, you know, have the regular funeral part, and then when we go to the firehouse, I think at that point we're gonna let everybody speak there and say what they want to say and kind of get. I think Tom's gonna try to make it where we have a microphone in that room where we can all speak and tell what we want to tell.
Great.
That's a bold move. A microphone in a room full of entertainers does.
Never know what might happen.
Oh, yeah.
It's probably not going used.
Larry would be like, that's my guitar. Watch what I can do now with this guitar.
Anthony, my friend.
Wow. Oh, I think I'm like most of us, like everybody, just really shocked about all this. And I look around my room here, and there's pics of Dave's everywhere. My guitars were all set up by him, and just the history of all these years and the knowledge that he shared, and it's a lot, that will always be part of my life, and I feel like we owe it to his memory to honor him and pass that knowledge on. Stay friends, keep talking, go to the EVH cons, watch these shows, support people who are trying to, keep the community going and all that. He was larger than life in a lot of ways, and I just can't, it's hard for me to accept that I can't pick up the phone and call him now. And I tell you what, I said it before, Des, and I'll say it again. I was so happy to see him so happy with you. And, the last few years since you guys have been together, I worried about him a lot less because I knew he had you.
Thank you.
And I'll be forever grateful to him for the knowledge and the friendships that I made through him, meeting people like Larry and Dennis. And like, I could cite 100 different things that they've taught me just from the short time I've spent with them in the room. And it's like, none of that would have happened without Dave. None of that would have happened if I didn't go into that store on my lunch hour and start talking to him. Or really for him start talking to me, right? Just a stranger. Come over, let's hang out. And, when I lived in Brooklyn, before I was married, living out here in Jersey, I used to go, get home from work, hop in the car, drive out to Long Island, and we jam and open mics and all that sort of stuff. And he taught me more than I can express about guitars and music. And you know what, Des? I wish I had video of him playing because he was freaking amazing.
Yeah.
I saw a few YouTube videos today of him playing, and he was singing this one song, Bad on Love or something. I don't know. Something like that. Bad Love.
Or Old Love. Was it Old Love?
What does it sound like, Dennis? Come on, sing it.
Oh, Jesus.
But I don't know, it's like like a sad blues song.
Oh, that narrows it down.
Well, sorry.
I thought they were all those happy blues songs.
I have a feeling it was Old Love.
It's Old Love.
Is it Old Love?
Yeah.
Okay. And listen to his playing and and then he got real excited. He's like going like that with the guitar and just listening to him hit the notes and his singing. I'm like, oh, I wish I would have saw him like that. I would have given anything. I'm like, I wish I would have met him. Not to say back in his prime, because that sounds very hateful, but I wish I would have met him when he was gigging and got to see him play on stage and then feel the energy. Because before the whole finger thing, he would strum here at home and he would play. And I thought he was amazing. And he would laugh at me. He goes, babe, this is nothing. He goes, you should have seen me before. And I wish I could have. I wish I could have turned back time, somehow met him a long time ago and experienced this. Because it's like, even on the videos, when you see him play, you just feel it. You feel it in your body. I'm like, of course, I don't even know the name of the song. And I still felt it. It's like you feel it. The look on his face, it's like it was like he was just making love to that guitar, making it scream and cry and beg him for more. That sounded kind of wrong. But
oh my.
I usually say stuff like that, Des, not you.
Yeah, but when you say it, I want to puke.
Jesus.
Now I'm really red. It just came out. So, but he just listened to the videos. And I remember one night I had him. I'm like, hey, he was talking about playing a gig. And I'm like, can we watch some videos? And he watched a few. And he's like, you know what? I can't. You can finish watching them. So he left the room. And I kept watching them. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, this is wow. This is amazing. Because you hear people say how great Dave is. He was a great musician. But until you hear it, it's like you couldn't comprehend just how great he was.
Right.
If I ever needed any kind of I got to play Jump for a wedding. Dave, how does that guitar solo go? Can you give me some like semblance? I'm going to mess it up because it's not my thing.
Yep.
Whatever. It doesn't matter. Or I loved it when he could play, when he played the intro to Mean Streets.
Yeah.
That was always, all right, Dave, how does that go? Okay, that's cool. But yeah, he was my go-to guy for anything Van Halen related, which was rare. It rarely crossed my path, but if it did and I needed to fake it, I would go to him.
Tell you what, though, I mentioned this before, like he was the first person I ever met that had that same kind of passion for Van Halen that I did. But I never knew that those things were doable. It was just magic that Eddie would do. And I would play guitar. I'm an okay player. I'm not great. But he would show me things. No, you can do this. Don't. He demystified a lot of it for me. And I could never repay him for that.
True.
He made you feel like you could do anything.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to do, he would make you feel like you could just take the world on, no matter what. Start a new job. I can't do that. Yes, you can. Whatever it was, he gave you the courage. Like, I want to play guitar. Okay, babe, you can play guitar. You got this. And I did like a few notes. He's like, you got this. He's like, you're like a natural. Keep going, keep going. I'm like, are you hearing what I'm hearing? This is like a natural for me. But he just gave you strength and he just made you want to do more. It's like, oh, okay, I can play guitar now. All right, I got this. And I used to joke about him. I said, babe, I'm like, maybe you'll teach me to be as good as you are. And then you can stand behind me, and you can use my hands and we'll play guitar together. And he's like, okay, it's a deal. He's like, we'll get you there. And, no way in hell would I ever get there. But he's made me feel like, you know what? Okay, I could do this. Let's just do this. And there was nothing that he wouldn't make you feel like you couldn't do. He just gave you that strength and that courage. Like he made you feel like you were it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree.
Desiree, I wanted to tell you too, like, I remember when you were moving up, up here in 2017. And I remember Dave was like, he was so like, Dennis, you both were so like, well, I want you to like, you could stay if you want to. I'm like, no. You guys are good. I'm good. I was already thinking like, it's time to exit. Like everything happened. I felt like it was so good. You guys were so good together, and, you can see the connection the two of you had. And it was like, it was my time to exit anyway, but I appreciated you guys were so like almost apologetic about it. I was like, apologetic? You're moving.
I felt guilty. I felt so guilty because I'm like,
I'm going.
I'm like, I felt like I was pushing you out, and I'm like, oh my god. I'm like, I told Dave, I'm like, oh my god, was he even talking to you before about leaving? He's like, no. And I'm like, oh my god, please tell Dennis I'm not trying to push him out. Please.
No. Usually it's the opposite. Usually, is he out yet? Yeah.
But I knew that like it was time for me to go anyway. So you arriving was like, that's exactly the bit of a push I needed to just to go, and it all worked out. And always know, like you are my friend as Dave was my friend. I'm not even 5 minutes away from you. I could walk to your house. I mean, it's 3 miles away. I could do it. It's easy. It's not bad. I mean, Jesus, I lived in this city for a dozen years. I walk more than that on a daily basis. So it's, I will. You need anything, I'm here.
I will take you up on it because even like today, when I went to go get the wedding pictures, and I'll tell people. So yesterday, Dennis heard me panicking. So yesterday, I wanted to print some wedding pictures out for the memorial we're having. So I took the cord, the charging cord, and I took our USB of our wedding pictures. And I got in a car, went to CVS, walked back to the photos, and they were gone. Everything was gone. I dropped it somewhere. I searched the whole store. I searched the parking lot. I searched my car. We all did. It was gone. So I was a panic. I'm like, oh my God, I lost our wedding pictures. So I called the photographer and they had it. So they're like, well, do you want us to mail it to you? Or do you want to come get it? So I'm like asking Dennis, I'm like, where, I can't do Queens. Oh my God, I can't do Queens. Where am I going? He's like, you got this. And I'm like, it's Queens. I can't do Queens. Oh my God. And I'm like, you know what? I'm like, but with my luck of losing stuff here lately, I was afraid that it would even come in the mail. So I'm like, okay, I'll go. And so the whole time over there, Dennis, I can't remember what you told me. So on the way back, we're on Cross Island Parkway, right? And I'm like, it wanted me to go some other way. And I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure I get to the LIE if I keep going straight. And I'm like, I could hear Dave tell me, Dave, don't doubt it. Quit listening to your crazy car and go straight. And then I heard you tell me, you got this, because I was like, I can't do Queens. So thank you, because you're like, it's easy. But I'm like, I can't know. So
Listen, you're welcome. I mean, anytime. About that little USB drive.
Yes.
Did you check the couch? That couch eats everything. Check the couch. Remember that pic that I dropped something, some piece of Dave's guitar into that couch? I couldn't find it. You found it.
I remember that day.
I couldn't find it. I couldn't find it. Dave couldn't find it. We were pissed, you know. And you couldn't find it on the first try. I'm telling you, look in that couch for that USB drive.
No, I was in the car because Brad was like, yeah, you showed it to me because you're like, oh, it took forever to find the cable, and here's this. But I don't know what I did with it. So I think I probably dropped it right when I stepped out, and someone's probably like, ooh, what's on this? I'm like, enjoy my wedding pictures. But yeah, so I went and got another copy, and I was scared shitless. Scared shitless going in there. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die going to Queens. But it was fun. So just get ready for all those phone calls. Because I used to ask Dave, hey, babe, how do I get here? Or, you know, it says, my car says this. So just get ready for those phone calls, Dennis, because it's your turn now.
No problem at all.
5 years later, I still don't know where the hell I'm going up here. So I'm like, Dennis,
right.
it says this. Do I go here? Dave be like, don't listen to your car. Just go straight. Well, you're with us that day we picked you up from the airport, remember? And he's like, don't listen to your car. Don't listen to your car. I'm like, where the hell am I going? I'm not listening to my car.
Yeah. And I thank you guys for picking me up that day at the airport. I really do.
You're very welcome. That was fun.
Yeah.
Nice.
I was in a bind.
So Amanda, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on tonight is because being active in the YouTube community, and I know like Des and I have been talking about the amount of outpouring from the community, and you've been relaying stuff to various people, and I thought you could say some words on behalf of like what we've witnessed this week in the YouTube world, as well as yourself on a personal level, obviously.
Well, I think because I was a viewer, I first saw Dave with Jay on Johnny Bean's channel.
Hey, wait. Oh, okay. I thought.
I remember thinking, wow, there's a lot of banter going on here. And this guy's pretty clever and he knows his stuff and this is funny. But I used to think it was so funny, and it was the ongoing joke that when Jay would bring up Metallica, Dave would get pissed and just like, but he was very unapologetic about it. Dave was very unapologetic about who he was and what he liked. And he wasn't like, screw you and your shitty band. He was, I don't like it, so I don't want to talk about it. And just let me not talk about it.
Yep.
And he taught people to just be you, and your people will be there. And that's cool. So I would watch a lot, and I'm hoping other people might have viewed it this way. I used to think he was always unfazed by anybody who was famous, let's say. Like, I had to ask, because I came from a different world. I wasn't as into guitars. I had to ask Ben. I was like, is Larry Mitchell like really famous? Like, do people really think he's like a big deal? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, really? Oh, okay. I didn't know. He's Larry, my friend Larry, that Dave knows, and he's just a cool guy. But I realized that Dave wasn't jaded, or he didn't think people weren't important. As I got to know him, he thought everybody was important. He thought everybody was a superstar. Everyone was on the same level. It didn't matter who walked in the door. They were the same as me, some chick from Ontario. You know, he made Ben feel special. He made everybody. I thought Jay was some fancy guitarist that I'd never heard of. I just walked in, and you know, like I didn't know any. You know, all these people that we've gotten to know, and you know, on some levels, some closer and whatnot. I didn't know that these people were like important. And I'm just like, hey, how's it going? And Dave was an inspiration to people. He was extremely knowledgeable, but wasn't condescending about his knowledge. And when everybody had a question, it was like, stop the press. You know, this person has a question about something, you know, fret, blah, 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 and everybody else knows exactly what the answer is, except
we
for
have a buzzing
10%.
Wolfgang in the chat, folks. We have a buzzing Wolfgang. Stop the presses. Yeah, that's Dave.
Like, it was important because that person needed to know, and he thought that was important.
Well, it was either that or the conversation shifted away from guitars, and he's guitar question. Bring it back. And he'd get the show back on.
I was thinking that one night, Jay, because I remember I had asked a question, and it was something, you know, like fairly beginner. And you read the question, you're like, why would Ben ask that? And Dave's like, because he's trying to save the show.
Yep. There you go.
It was something like, how do you check neck relief or something like that? And I don't know.
So I'm kind of known for being everywhere in YouTube chats, and I have not seen this out of the woodworks action this week. People really coming in, you know, reaching out. Did you, you know, are you okay? It's not, did you hear about Dave? It's, are you okay about Dave? It wasn't, it's like everybody's grieving because they felt so close to him. And, you know, I never thought, and I'm sure none of you thought, that you would ever meet people on YouTube and think they were your actual friends and get so close to people. But you do. And Dave was that kind of guy. I like to sing, and Dave was extremely encouraging when it came to that. He would say, you know, not everybody has that. Not everybody can hold a note. So you should really be proud of what you can do. And I'm like, well, damn, I guess I'm kind of special. And he would light a fire under everybody. And I think the chat absorbed that. And I think they really enjoyed how excited he got about everything. He was just extremely enthusiastic. He was very open about how he felt about people, good or bad.
Yep.
And he was very honest. He was very straightforward. He's what we would call a straight shooter. But you trusted his opinion. And if he said someone was a bit of an asshole, you're thinking,
they're an asshole.
I must be a bit of a fucker. You know? Like, you trusted his word even though you didn't know him. I didn't know what Dave's middle name was, but I would have trusted. He said, hey, go stay at this person's place. I'd be like, yeah, cool, it must be safe. You just know good people when you know good people. And this community is full of good people, and the community is grieving Dave. And I think everybody is trying not to seem too overwhelming or seem like they knew him too closely. But he was a superstar to everybody, just as everybody was a superstar to him. And we're all going to miss him very much.
Thank you, Amanda.
Well
Very
said,
well
Amanda.
said. Very well said.
Wait a minute. Dave didn't like Metallica?
I thought he loved Metallica.
Man, it was the best because every time the Metallica would come up, either whether it's from me or somebody in the chat would mention, Dave would, I forget who mentioned it before, but he just leaned back in the chair. He didn't want anything to do with it.
He's already planning tomorrow's meal in his head. Yeah, he's already he's gone. He checks out.
He couldn't wait for another question. And speaking of his knowledge, and I touched on it before, and so have you guys. But like, again, you know, I learned so much, you know, from him about guitars in general. But you know, we'd get questions in the chat, and I'd read them. Like, what does that even mean? And he'd be like, oh yeah, if you have that guitar, then this bridge won't fit on it, but this one will. And I'm like, what? You know, and you have to use these certain things with it. I'm like, how the hell? You know, it's almost like he had like a guitar encyclopedia that he was like reading, you know, but he knew it. You know, I was like, damn.
He knew it fast. Like, I learned so much about guitars by being with him, and like, you know, and watching the shows, and like even before we were together, people ask something, and within seconds, he's like, oh, blah 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 blah, and you're like, how do you know all this and so quickly? I'm like, how do you pull it out like that? I'll be like, what is that piece called again? Oh, and what are you supposed to? It was just so quick, and it's like it never ended. It's like it was very rare that he could not answer a question. And when he couldn't answer it, then you could tell everybody's like, uh-oh, you don't know? Then don't ask us, you know. But you're right. Y'all are all right. He was so knowledgeable, and he just knew so much. Like, it was never ending.
So he loved it.
Yeah.
He loved it.
He did. He really did. He really did. Yeah.
He was my guitar geek buddy. He was my guitar gear geek buddy. You know, it's like I told you guys before, the picture just set up. We're going to set up all of our Telecasters in multiple colors and just look at them and go, cool. That was the afternoon. That was. Let's rearrange them. Hey, let's do it now with the Stratocasters. Let's do it like, you know, just stupid like 15-year-old kid stuff. You know that, but
There are worse ways to spend your time. I think that's a very valuable way to spend your time.
Right. Until you're like, all right, I got to go now.
Yeah.
It was good. It was good.
Yeah. Wow.
I want to say one more thing real quick because I know we're getting really late. I know a lot of you have reached out. I know a lot of you post things on Facebook. Eventually, I will get to them. I won't lie. I haven't seen all of them. I have not really been on Facebook. I start reading them. There's several of them I have commented on, but it's good to read the stories, but sometimes it's very overwhelming and hard. So please know that if you see me respond to one person's post and not yours, it's not that I don't care, but I will eventually get to all of them because I think there's like 1 million on his wall. I've lost count. Like every time I open up like sometimes I would open up his because it's a lot easier to see all the posts. And I'd be like, oh my God, wow. And you always know something. Like, I know I've said this 1 million times, so excuse me. I knew he was important to me. I knew he was important to a lot of you. But just seeing all over the world, people from Portugal, people from Spain, from Australia, and just seeing all these posts and all the things that he meant to them, you're just like, wow. And so please don't get your feelings hurt. Eventually, I will have enough courage to open mine and quit using Davis because I'm freaking people out when I respond. I realize I'm underneath his name. I did that the other day. I'm like, oops, sorry. Or I'll call people because I don't have their phone number. And instead of putting in my phone, I just call and they're like, hello? I'm like, hi, it's Desiree. No, I'm sorry. It's not David. It's me. So please, I want everyone to know that I do appreciate it all. I'm a little overwhelmed, but the outpour, I just cannot tell you. Even people I don't know are reaching out to me saying, if you need anything. And being a Texas girl, moving up to New York, I felt like I didn't really have a lot of friends here. I felt like, of course, David was my world. And I know some of David's friends are my friends. But this, not even a week yet, you all have showed me so much love, so much support. It has made this so much easier. I've gotten so many phone calls, and I know some of you, if I don't answer, you call back or you text me, hey, are you okay? And I won't lie, and I'll say no. And you'll walk me through it. You're like, okay, what can I do for you? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know who I am. But please know that I will eventually look at all of your comments, and I love all the pictures, the videos, everything, and I really do appreciate all of it. Because I'll be honest, I don't even know what I just said, but I'll be honest, I don't think I would have made it this many days without all the love and support. I mean, I would have made it, but not where I can be like, okay, it's going to be all right. So I thank you all of you on the chat here for taking out your time again and just for showing me the love and show me again how special I really was to have David in my life and to have you all. Because, most of you, some of you, I've never met in person. Just like, when someone's saying, like when Amanda's talking about, trusting someone on YouTube. Hell, I not only did I not trust him, I never thought I would marry someone off of YouTube. I just saw this guy on show. Sure, I moved to New York. So, 1,600 miles away from my whole family. I'm trusting you're not a serial killer. And I'm going to walk in here and you're going to, they're going to find my body in pieces. But, because you never know. And I'm like, my family, you're going to live with someone you met on YouTube? Okay. I'm like, yes, he's great. He's awesome. Wait till you meet him one day. Once you meet him, you'll know why I'm going up there. So
You should have just sent some links. Here, check them out.
Check it out. I did. Actually, my cousin was on here a few months ago because I sent her a link. And she met David at the wedding. She loved him. But now I've told all my friends, if you don't know David, check out the show tonight. You'll know him then. But again, please don't be offended. Please know that eventually I will get to all of it. And again, thank you. Hell, we still have 80 people watching this. Thank you, everyone. And I appreciate everything that you're doing. I appreciate all the love and support. I know it's going to go on past this week, and I'll take it. I might not respond, but I will take all the love and support you want to give me. And thank you so, so much.
The last time I was up here, David's working on a guitar. He worked on it, worked on it, worked on it. He said, Earl, I had to call that man and tell him, but I can't fix this. So I guess 3 or 4 hours later, he came walking in there smiling. They said, finally figured out what was wrong with it. I got it fixed. But he was hating so bad to call that man and say, I cannot fix it. Because I don't think he'd ever worked on a guitar he couldn't fix. He just didn't want to give up.
True. Thank you very much, Jim Cox. Appreciate it. That'll be going towards the Kidney Foundation. Thank you very much. Well, I feel like that band that's on so late in the gig that you're only playing to the bar staff, because every note's been played, every word's been said at this point. So I can say, like known Dave basically 5 years through this magic of YouTube. Dave was one of my first guests ever on my channel. He said, yeah, hit me up anytime. I'm like, all right. And I think it was like a Monday afternoon live stream because he was just hanging around. And I said, okay, let's do it. And it was great. And then, who knew a few years later, be doing shows together. And I love doing those because in many ways, we're very much the same in some ways, but we're very different in other ways. If there is one area of guitars that Dave is not knowledgeable in, is the sub 500. Why are you looking at those door openers? Like, don't even bother, like a Squire or whatever, right? That wasn't Dave's bag. And I've always had a little thing for those. He goes, we're great together. We cover all the bases. You like junk and I don't. I was like, oh, sure.
Thanks, I think.
And then after a while, Dave's like, I'm going to have to stop in and shop and try one of these Epiphones because we saw Bo Zeke here in the chat. Dave's arch nemesis from the chat. Dave, you gotta try an Epiphone. Like they're not that bad. No, I'm but then Dave was starting to open up about that, and they had their back and forth, and it was great. And just so many good times. Like me, Dave being what he was into as far as his influence of player, like he loved that 80s Super Strat. Quality of player. And I remember one night we did a 10-minute conversation on Jay Mascis from Dinosaur Jr. And he's like, I don't get it, dude. I watched the rig rundown. I was like, yep. He's like, and then he started talking, and then I really didn't like him. I'm like, that makes sense. And then he started playing, and I really didn't like him. I get it.
Like Dad.
And he's like, so what's the deal? I'm like, he's a genius. Like, all right, if you want to sound like that, but he's like, you be you, like, and he's like, and then after the show, he's like, okay, send me a few tracks, let me check them out, and I check it. He goes, nope, I don't get it, I don't get it, but he gave it a shot, which was awesome. And I'm so happy that we shared a lot of laughs, and Dave liked to bust balls on occasion, so
On
I think
occasion.
it's okay.
I was about to say the same thing. On occasion, you're lucky.
Yeah. Well, that's how you knew he was one of the first things he said to me was he goes, "That's how you know I like you, because I'll bust your balls." Well, perfect. I love it. So, and like I say, so many cherished memories. I'm gonna miss the hell out of the guy. Phone calls as well as anything else. Like we always say, talking as much guitars as life as anything else. I'm glad we did tonight for sure. Thank you, Des, for allowing me to do this. I just want to do him justice. That's all.
And you did. You did. Thank you so much. You definitely gave him justice tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah. Appreciate all you guys for helping us say goodbye to him in many ways. But can we really say goodbye to Dave? Because he's like Dennis, like you say, he's right there, right?
Keep talking about him. Keep talking.
His two shoulders is either do you really need that or my God, that's the best tone ever. It's one or the other. He's always going to be there with all of us. So if you guys want to hang on the line, we can talk off air and say our goodbyes. Des, do you have any parting words? Thank you, Symmetry, by the way.
Just again, thank you all. Thank you for your time. I mean, my God, I never expect us to be on for 3 hours and almost 4 hours.
Yeah.
So thank you all. And again, I appreciate all the stories and all the love and all the support. And just know that David lived to do in his show. He loved it. He loved talking about gear. I think that's why he loved guitars. It made him feel like there was something to look forward to. So every week he would look forward to Thursday, no matter what was going on. That was like his moment. Yeah. So thank you all. Thank you for all your love and support through him, through all his health issues. From day one, anytime he was in the hospital or anything, you always were very supportive and you just really cared. And again, thank you. Thank you again for staying with us tonight. And thank you again for all your stories. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Desiree.
I thank y'all again too. I just couldn't believe he's got this many friends.
It makes it easy.
Y'all
it makes it so easy.
Y'all are just a few, I guess. But I think everybody loved him.
Yep. Y'all made this so much easier. It doesn't feel like he's really gone. Even though I know tonight it will know that, but it's just all the stories. I don't feel so sad like I did before this started. I feel like so much more joy now. I feel like I'm on the other side of grieving. I'm not, but it helps so much. It's like you don't want to be sad now because they're right. David was so happy all the time. Even when he shouldn't be happy, he was happy, and it's just thank you.
Well said.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to go.
All
right, Larry.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Hi, Larry.
See you later, Larry.
See you, everybody.